Tanzeem Haider. Dr. Tanzeem Haider, it's wonderful to see you on the screen. We also have Dr. Tanzeem Haider. He is one of a big name in emergency medicine, and we are very proud of him. He got OBE from Queen Elizabeth in United Kingdom. So this is a great opportunity to learn more about emergency medicine too, if you want to pursue your career in emergency medicine. Mike,
आजकल लाइक अगर कभी बहुत ही लोग क्या मेडिकल में मतलब कोई स्पेशलिटी को छोड़ के सिर्फ मेडिकल का पूछे ना कि कौन किस में जाना है पहले तो ये आता है मेडिकल में तो अब मतलब जो है जो ना कि ये हर फील्ड की कोई ना हर फील्ड के ना सारे जो नेगेटिव पॉइंट्स है वही ट्राई करते हैं
ओके या फिर वो ऑलरेडी काफी प्रेजेंट है
आप बात करें
जैसे मेरा मतलब खुद पर्सनल जो है मेरा सर्जरी का है मैंने सर्जरी को आगे पुश करना है लेकिन जब भी मैं किसी सर्जरी से या फिर पूछूं तो फिर ये होता है कि लड़कियों की सर्जरी ठीक नहीं है ये है मतलब सारे नेगेटिव पॉइंट्स आते हैं तो फिर पता क्या करें फिर लेकिन वो ये तो डाले में फिर भी सर्जरी में ही जाऊंगी
हमारे द बेस्ट पर्सन जो आपको सर्जरी का बताएगा
हां सर देखिए पुराने मजीद की मेरे ख्याल है सूरह मरियम जिसमें अल्लाह ताला को कहते हैं कि नजर दे और फिर नजर में जब वो सलाम अल्लाह ताला ने कहा कि मर्द और औरत लैसा ज़कर का लुत्फ़ मर्द औरत की तरह नहीं है ये तो एक अल्लाह ताला का फैसला है They are two different species, I would say. और अगर आप इसकी डिटेल चाहती हैं तो men are from Mars and women are from Venus. खासतौर पर जिनकी शादी होती है वो जरूर पढ़ें। तो ये चीज को कहना कि वो ये नहीं कर सकती मैं तो वो तो ऐसे नहीं है तो मैं इसलिए कह सकता हूँ क्योंकि मेरी स्पेशलिटी में तो 80% गर्ल है। कुछ स्ट्रेंथ्स हैं विमेन की बीइंग विमेन कुछ वीकनेस है वो अगर बैलेंस वीकनेस को किसी तरह से ओवरकम कर ले तो देखें कि कुछ अब आई रियली फील प्राउड कि हमारे कैंपोरियन है बड़ा हुमा मतलब बड़ा उन्होंने भी पास किया है एमएस और ही बबलिंग विद एनर्जी कभी वो कैंप लगा रही थी तो सेटी और शी हैज गुड सर्जिकल हैंड और हम अपने जर्दी में होता था कि किसी को देना है काम तो उसको देखते बल्कि इतना ओवर एंथुसियास्टिक में रोकना पड़ता था बाकी भी आप करने का तो आई वुड से कि गर्ल्स गॉट सॉफ्ट हैं और दे कैन बी एक्चुअली गुड सर्जन और जो दुनिया की बेहतरीन सर्जन हैं जिनमें कोई एक चीजें एक प्रोसीजर याद करी मैं आपको अपना पर्सनल बता सकता हूँ मैंने जिससे Echo modification surgery. She was a German doctor working in UK. Christiana Klumper, ये भी नाम है. She was so gentle, she was so nice. पर ये कि मर्दों में सब्र नहीं होता. अब मैं आपको बता. औरत में सब्र ज़्यादा होता है. वो आराम से मसलन मैं आपको कुछ किया हमारे पास है. इन्हें रजिस्टर है. वो बात जगह जहाँ पे ऐसी नाजुक डिसेक्शन करानी होती है. ह्यूमन की या किसी मैं कहता हूँ कि तुम करो यू गॉट टू नो जनरल एंड आपको सब्र ज़्यादा है बंदे का कहना है मैं पीछे जो कर रहा हूँ तो ये है कि यू गॉट टू नो ये बात आप देखो ना
डॉक्टर कभी सबसे पहले आप मुझे ये बताएं कि यू वांट टू बी अ सर्जन व्हाई सबसे पहले तो आपने आपको क्लियर करें इस माइंडसेट में if this is my strength and I want to play on that strength and these are my weaknesses because everybody has weaknesses and there is no question that I don't have any weakness yes everyone wants to hear this but you have to make it clear what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses and why you want to go for surgery because there are many specialties where the surgery is the part and parcel of that specialty right not only general surgery We have more than 26 allied surgical disciplines. Even eye, plastic surgery, gynecology, etc. They all have surgical components in it. Second is that training period. Yes, that is the toughest part of any training. So the training period, and then you have to take your profession for the rest of your life. And that profession becomes your life too. It becomes a part of your life. And you are defined by your profession. I have seen many people who are pediatrician and they start talking just like child, as they are child themselves. And I have seen many other specialities that they start reflecting their specialty even without telling that I am the specialist of that field. So first of my question would be, why you want to become a surgeon?
आप इसको रिफ्लेक्ट करें इस दौरान किसी और का सवाल
पूछना। First, we have to make it a clear point that why you want to become a surgeon. हमारे panelists बैठे हुए हैं online if they want to give any answer to Tanzeem.
मैम जब हमारी हाउस लाइक स्टार्ट होगी तब हमने पेशेंट के लिहाज से उसमें देखा था कि हमारी इंडस्ट्री किस चीज में ज्यादा वर्क हो रही है किसमें है। तो मेरा जो था वो लाइक स्किल वर्क और उसके लिए ज्यादा सर्जरी की तरफ जो ना ज्यादा जाता है इस वजह से जो ना यस मैम जब मैं सर्जरी में लाइक जो पेशेंट्स थी ना मेरी अगर अब कुछ प्रोसीजर्स होते हैं जो एचओस को देते हैं कि ये आप लोग करेंगे ना तो उनमें हर कोई मुझे जब मैं कर रही होती थी जो असिस्ट करा रहा मतलब जो कर रहा था वो यही बोल रहा था तुम्हारा सर्जरी यू हैव सर्जिकल हेड लेकिन जब मैं अगर कैरियर की बात करूँ तब कोई भी ये जो सपोर्ट कर रहा था फिर इस बात में हाँ भी का कभी शुड किया सर्जरी
Right. इसमें ट्रेनिंग का पार्ट जो है that is the toughest part. और जो उसके लिए आपने if you have a passion for surgery, you have to think कि मेरे surgery में कौन सी speciality या subspeciality या super speciality adopt करनी है. And that decision would again depend upon how much time you can give for the training period. Right. Dr. Tanzeem, would you like to add anything? Dr. Tanzeem.
There's a question about MTI and PLAB and things. I can talk on that. अगर सारे अगर आप कहें मेरी आवाज आ रही है
जी आपकी आवाज में क्लियर आ रही है
यहाँ चैट बॉक्स में किसी ने MTI और PLAB के बारे में सवाल लिखा है डॉक्टर सायरा ने if you want me to answer that I can
yes please go ahead
right अस्सलाम वालेकुम मेरा नाम तंजीम हैदर है उर्दू और अंग्रेजी दोनों मिक्स में बोलूँगा ताकि लोग समझ सकें so I'm in the UK and I've been involved with the international medical graduates for many years in various routes. So this will be briefly about how people may pursue training in the UK regardless of the specialty. So the first thing is that there are two separate aspects of getting into UK. One is to get the registration with the General Medical Council, and the second is to get a visa or a work permit, if you like. So for the GMC registration is more fundamental, and for GMC registration for overseas doctors from Pakistan, there can be two possible routes. One is simple, straightforward PLAB test. Anybody who's done their MBBS and done their 1 year of house job is eligible to do part 1 and part 2 of PLAB test, as well as the English language test, which can be either OET or MTI, IELTS. And IELTS, OET and PLAB part 1 you can do in Pakistan, but for part 2 one has to travel to the UK. Once you complete your part 2 PLAB exam, then you get GMC registration, and then you can apply around for the jobs depending upon your experience and your specialty that you want to pursue. So there are several exams in that route. Currently, the job situation in the UK is not bad. People who have done their PLAB, if they have at least 2-3 years of experience in their specialty back home, and they usually get a job. Usually They start with a non-training job, and then they can enter into training once they have had at least a year of work experience in the UK. So that is the PLAB route. MTI is a specific route. It's called Medical Training Initiative. When UK introduced the current tier system for visas about 10-15 years ago, they created this category. This is a sponsorship program which leads to PLAB exemption. So the benefit of this is that you do not have to do PLAB Part 1, Part 2, and you can get the GMC registration. You still have to do your English language test, which is IELTS or OET, whichever you may wish to do. And the prerequisite for going through the MTI route is that you have to have at least 3 to 4 years of experience in your chosen specialty in Pakistan. And in addition to the experience, you should have at least an intermediate module of your FCPS, or if you're doing any medical specialty, you have to do the written MRCP exams, which again happen in the UK. So for MTI, you have to be relatively senior. You have to have several years of experience and some postgraduate exam within that specialty. If you have that, then you apply to the respective Royal College. So if you want to be a physician or any of the medical specialty, there was a question about cardiology or neurology, then of course you apply to the Royal College of Physicians of London or Edinburgh, and they will then interview you. They can put you on their panel, and then they would try to find you a job, or you can run two things simultaneously. You can apply for a middle grade job, and the MTI process through the college will get you the exemption from the PLAB, and they will also get you a tier 5 visa. The snag with tier 5 visa is that is only allowed for maximum of 2 years. So you can come in for something highly specialized as well under MTI. So for example, somebody is a gastroenterologist and they want to learn endoscopic ultrasound, for example. So they can come in as endoscopic ultrasound trainee if one of the hospitals can take them. So after 2 years, if you still want to stay in the UK, you will have to leave the UK for once, and then you apply again, and then you can come back on a different visa. So that is very briefly about these two routes. I'll be happy to answer any questions rather than me going on. So I'll leave it here and invite any questions on these two aspects. If anybody has any questions, please.
You can come here and talk. नीचे किसने आप क्वेश्चन Assalamualaikum. Sir, I want to ask that if one comes to the UK through MTI route, then after completing training as SHO, 2 years of training as SHO in UK, then what is the scope if we have to stay further in UK? Do we have to apply for MRCP or MRCS there? And if we give the exam of MRCS and MRCP there, then are we allowed to stay further? And what will be the scope of the GMC registration afterwards there?
So, MTI, once you are registered with the GMC, you are registered with the GMC. That is there for forever, so long as you get regular, what you call revalidation. For training program, as I said earlier, so MTI is only specific for maximum of 2 years. But then if you want to continue to train or work in the UK, then you have to apply again. And you may have to leave UK and apply from Pakistan, or you secure a job in the UK and then you go back and you just change your visa. That's not that difficult. The sponsor will change. All these visas are issued through a sponsor. So MTI is a central thing, which is the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges, which sponsors you. And that is, as I said, maximum for 2 years. If you come directly, if you get sponsored by an employing hospital, that can be for 5 years, and after 5 years get nationality. You can stay here forever if you want to. If you want to go back, of course you can go back. And getting into training program, there are two different strands. MTI is specific for specialist training in a certain aspect for up to 2 years. But if you come through tier 2 visa, then you can train in whatever specialty you like for whatever duration you like, and you can even continue to work here. I don't know if I explained it well. If there's still any ambiguity, I'm happy to try again.
Sir, I want to ask, is there any chance or is there any way while you are on tier 5 visa, you can upgrade it to tier 2 while living there, giving any exam, even if while you are on tier 5 visa? Can you give PLAB and then you can apply for tier 2, upgrade your visa, or MRCS or MRCP and upgrade your visa? Or you,
I understood your question. Your college exams, MRCS, MRCP, MRCOG, etc., they are not linked with your visa. Or once you get the GMC registration, whether you get it through PLAB or you get through your MTI, or if you get full MRCP UK or MRCS or not MRCS, MRCOG, then you can get registration even on that account as well. So that is the registration bit. That's the GMC registration. Visa is separate, completely separate. Visa is done through various tiers, and that it can you need a sponsor for that. And the sponsor can either be your employer, which is the employing hospital, or it could be the MTI, which is the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges. So, and if you initially come on MTI, and I thought that was your question, if you get selected on MTI, let's say for a medical specialty, and you do your 2 years of MTI training, and then you decide, no, I want to get into proper training and continue in the UK, then you don't need to do that. It is not linked with your MRCP. You apply to different hospitals, and if you have 2 years of experience in the UK as an MTI trainee, then of course your chances of employability are very, very high. So it's fairly straightforward once you are in the UK. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. So one more question.
Uh-huh.
Is there any scope if the house job is not done and there are only 5 years of MBBS you have completed in Pakistan, then what is the scope if the MBBS doctors come there without their foundation year?
So that is theoretically possible, but practically quite difficult, because F1 jobs, as they're called, are almost all of them are linked to the medical students in the UK. But if usually about 5% of the candidates in the UK may fail their final year exam. And if somebody fails, there may be a gap. And then somebody who has done no house job and just done their MBBS, they might be eligible. That I would not recommend, because that's quite tricky and that's quite risky. I would recommend that you complete your house job if you're coming at that level, and do your PLAB, and then you come in, then you can get in quite easily.
So what are the scopes of basic sciences in, if you are going to pursue anatomy, biochemistry, or community medicine in the UK? Is it necessary house job for that purpose? Is it house job necessary for that too?
No, that will be purely a university degree, and you apply for a course, and then you go into that, maybe a master's or a PhD or something. If you want to do pure anatomy or pure physiology or biochemistry, most people in this country will come from clinical background in those specialties as well. And if you want to come clinical background, then you have to have GMC registration.
Thank you very much. I want to put one thing to the audience. देखिए, आपने ट्रेनिंग हाउस ऑफिसर, आपने ये सोचना है कि if you want to go abroad, what is your purpose? कुछ लोगों का तो पर्पस है बस ये जाना है, बाहर ही जाना है, वो that is no purpose. आप अपना पहले गोल, कोई मकसद कोई डिफाइन करें, what training you want to get. और क्योंकि there is not much awareness, इसलिए बड़े प्रॉब्लम हो जाते हैं. अभी मैं मॉर्निंग में सर्च कर रहा था कि सर यूके में, ऑस्ट्रेलिया में मैं ऑस्ट्रेलिया में काम किया है, वहाँ पे फैमिली फिजिशियन या जनरल प्रैक्टिशनर की बहुत बड़ी ओपनिंग्स हैं, वो भी सर बताएंगे। और अगर आप वो डायरेक्ट उस करियर में जाना चाहें तो आपके लिए आसानी है। आई नो क्वाइट अ फ्यू माय केमिकोलियन फ्रेंड्स, they did MRCOG, they worked as specialty doctor in gynae या psychiatry और बहुत सारी specialties, and then because it was very competitive, ophthalmology and gynae is very competitive in UK, then they changed their specialty and they did fellowship from Royal College of General Practitioners, and then they became general practitioner. So that is a very vast field और very flexible and very lucrative these days. That's true. सर जरा उसके बारे में बताइए।
जी बिल्कुल, आई थिंक जैसे अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम डॉक्टर मोहम्मद शफीक गिल है। जैसे डॉक्टर साहब ने जिक्र किया है कि उसमें बहुत सारी अपॉर्चुनिटीज होती हैं, कभी किसी फील्ड में ज़्यादा होती हैं, कभी किसी में ज़्यादा होती हैं। तो जब व्हेन यू आर प्लानिंग तो आपको वो देखना होता है कि भी वहाँ पे क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज, ऑब्वियसली आपकी अपनी एस्पिरेशंस होती हैं कि आप क्या करना चाहते हैं, लेकिन वहाँ पे देखो आपको देखना था कि वहाँ पे अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ क्या है। क्योंकि अगर आप उन अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ के हिसाब से प्लान करते हैं तो आपके लिए आसानी पैदा होती है। देन यू कैन, क्योंकि स्पेशली जब लोग जाते हैं देन ऑब्वियसली दे आर कीन कि उनको जाते हैं किसी शक्ल में पेड जॉब मिल जाए। तो अगर आप सही स्पेशलिटी के लिए प्रिपेयर जा रहे हैं तो आपको जॉब बहुत जल्दी मिल जाती है। अदरवाइज समटाइम्स लोगों को ज़्यादा इंतजार करना पड़ता है, फिर उसके ज़्यादा अपने प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं। तो फिर जब 2-4 इंटरव्यूज़ के बाद रिजेक्शंस होती हैं तो फिर लोग जो है उसमें वो मेंटली डिस्टर्ब भी होते हैं कि इतना टाइम लग गया, फिर रिसोर्सेज भी वेस्ट हो रहे होते हैं। तो उसमें जैसे डॉक्टर साहब ने बिल्कुल जो मेन पॉइंट ये जो आई विल बी स्ट्रेसिंग इन माय प्रेजेंटेशन एज वेल, वो ये है कि देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ प्रिपरेशन जो आप यहाँ से करके जा सकते हैं। जितने प्रिपेयर्ड आप यहाँ से जाएंगे उतना वहाँ पे आपका टाइम बच जाता है, क्योंकि वहाँ पे आप एक नई एनवायरनमेंट में होते हैं, आपकी इंफॉर्मेशन तक एक्सेस मुश्किल हो जाती है। तो बहुत सारा काम आप यहाँ से करके जा सकते हैं एंड देन लाइफ बिकम्स रिलेटिवली इजी कि फिर आप जिस एम के साथ भी जा रहे हैं आप वहाँ पे अपनी आगे ज़ाहिर जॉब मिल जाए, आप आगे अपने एग्जाम की प्रिपरेशन कर लें, तो फिर आप अपनी फर्दर ट्रेनिंग में या फर्दर डेवलपमेंट में आप जो है उसमें लग जाते हैं।
वो सर आप बताएंगे पॉइंट्स बाद में प्रेजेंटेशन में। ये बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं। मैं तो आपको 1995 का बता सकता हूँ, जो मैंने FRCS कर लिया हुआ था एंड देन आई स्टार्टेड अप्लाइंग फॉर द जॉब्स। और आप यकीन करें अब तो मे बी इससे ज़्यादा कम्पिटिटिव है, बट एवरी वीक आई यूज टू पोस्ट माई CV टू, उस जमाने में तो वो मेल जाते थे, तो फर्स्ट क्लास मेल, बड़ा खर्चा होता है उसमें, और वो 8-10 में जगहों पे भेजता था एंड इट टुक मी 2 months एवरी वीक अप्लाइंग, क्योंकि BMJ में ऐड आती हर वीक, नए एड्स आते। और तो ये है, सर ने बिल्कुल अभी आपको पॉइंट्स जो बताएंगे उनको रजिस्टर करें कि यहाँ से मसलन रिसर्च करने, आई एम श्योर कि वो होगा कॉम्पोनेंट, वो आप यहाँ से भी कर सकते हैं। अगर अच्छे जर्नल्स में आपकी रिसर्च पब्लिश है तो वो आपका उसमें वेटेज बढ़ा देगी एप्लीकेशन में।
Presentation, I think we should start.
We can speak to this.
I'll give the question ले लें।
ठीक है जी बिल्कुल।
अगर question है तो
Any more question? एक लास्ट ले लेंगे।
Last question.
मेरे ख्याल है एक रूट और वो भी सर ने थोड़ा सा पॉइंट आउट किया था, खासतौर पे जो CPSP के ट्रेनीज हैं वो गोगल साहब भी बताते रहते हैं कि देयर इज अ रूट कि यू डू योर इंटरमीडिएट मॉड्यूल एग्जाम हियर, और कुछ सिलेक्टेड स्पेशलिटीज हैं, मेरे ख्याल 11 के करीब। You can go to Ireland and certain hospitals in UK as well, और वो आपको पेड जॉब मिलती है वहाँ पे, लेकिन वो 2 years का आपको लिमिटेड वीजा होता है एंड यू कंप्लीट योर ट्रेनिंग, वो आपकी काउंट होती है CPSP में भी ट्रेनिंग। यू कंप्लीट योर ट्रेनिंग फॉर 2 years there and you come back and appear in your final FCPS exam, and if then again if you want to go you can go.
Any more questions from the audience before we start with the presentation? So we have got excellent speakers from UK, 9 speakers. They will talk about different aspects of job situation. It is quite a comprehensive program. Please bear with us. So every speaker will have 7 minutes to talk about different things. Obviously, it's not only as Professor Rahmat excellent speakers talking about from entry into the UK up to specialist training to become a transplant surgeon. Okay. So we will cover different aspects of that. So we have got our first speaker, Dr. Shafiq Gill, who is our senior executive in KEMCA UK, and he is a clinical director in Sherwood Forrest Hospital. It is one of the best declared hospitals in the UK. So we have the right person to speak about the job situation in the UK. So stage is yours.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. My name is, just for introduce, my name is Shafiq Gill. I'm a graduate of class of 91 from King Edward Medical College. It always brings back all those nice memories coming back to the college. So I moved to UK in 2002, and I remember when I just graduated. I'm assuming all of you are now graduates, isn't it? So I was looking for various options. Obviously, बहुत से class fellows कोई अमेरिका जा रहा था, कोई इंग्लैंड का सोच रहा था, कोई यहीं पे FCPS का वो सोच रहा था. I remember having a discussion with the Professor Nasreen Wasim Yusuf, होती थी pathology की professor उस time पे. She was a very nice person. उनसे मैंने UK की options का पूछा, and she said कि अगर आप UK का सोच रहे हैं तो you have to be prepared कि आपको 2 से 3 साल pathology में honorary job अगर आप कर सकते हैं तो there might be a chance कि आपको आगे कोई training post मिल जाए. तो इस तरह की situation होती थी. Thank you. So that gives you an idea that situation change होती रहती है, as I was mentioning earlier. But if you are thinking of an option of UK, and that's what we will be stressing today as part of our session, because we have a team of individuals from United Kingdom to give you an idea, okay, what are the opportunities, what are the things you need to be careful, mindful before you're planning, and then once you're there, what you can achieve, and also there will be facility for question answer where we can have a bit of discussion in terms of how your seniors, the King Edward Medical College alumni in the UK, we can help you. And there is or help advise you or guide you, and that's the sole aim, is to create that sort of relationship where we can help you guys in terms of planning your sort of further training or moving to UK. So just to give you an idea, in UK the healthcare is what we call National Health Service, which is just one big organization. And when I say one big organization, it's one of the top 5 employers in the world, which has 1.6 million staff, and it has a large number of medical workforce, and they have historically always relied on medical workforce from overseas. It has kept changing in different specialties, but that's has always been the case. And currently, it's about 30% of the doctors in the NHS. They are basically the ones who graduated from outside UK. So obviously, the first question we need to look at is why should someone think of working in the NHS or moving to UK? So NHS aspires to provide what we call world-class care. And obviously not everything is perfect, but it's really near to perfect. And it's it has been classified as one of the best healthcare systems in the world. And so that means if you work in NHS, it gives you exposure at that level. At an individual level, obviously, there are huge career growth or career development opportunities. Post-graduation is one of those. And you can, not only you can get the qualification, but you can upgrade your skills. You can bring that knowledge and expertise from there. And it is a very good employer in the sense that it gives very good job satisfaction, job security, and reasonable degree of financial security as well. There is a very good pension systems if you work there and retire there. And more recently, there are opportunities for what we call flexible working, which is especially very attractive for our female colleagues, and even for males these days, where people who want to, for whatever reason, for personal reasons, do not want to work very long extended hours, want to have a bit of flexible working approach. And as I mentioned, other than pension, there are quite a vast range of employment-related benefits. So overall, in terms of working in NHS, it's a good place to work there. As I mentioned, there is about a 30% workforce is from overseas, and that gap is gradually increasing. And the reasons for that is, I'm sure all of you are aware, we recently had Brexit, where UK became separate from the rest of the Europe. That effectively meant a lot of doctors from Europe went back to Europe, and that has created a bit of a gap. During COVID-19, there was issues in terms of medical staff training, in terms of being able to recruit people from overseas or even from within the system. So that has created an increased gap. In addition, and I'm sure as happened in Pakistan, we were not able to see all the patients during COVID, which has been going on now for more than 2 years. And that has created a huge backlog of patients. At the moment, about 15 million patients are waiting to have their appointments or to have their surgery for non-urgent reasons. Now, those patients have to be seen. And the way COVID situation is, we don't know when we will be going back to normal, but whenever we go back to normal, then we would have to deal with that backlog. So that effectively means probably for next 4 to 5 years, there will be an increased demand for medical workforce. If we go by the current estimates, the estimate is that the NHS is short of 50,000 doctors in various grades, and that is a huge number. And then on top of that, the way there are changes happening in the pension rules and others, a lot of doctors, they are planning to take what we call early retirement for different reasons, either for personal reasons or for financial reasons. So that is likely to create a gap of another 25,000 doctors. So if you put that number in perspective, UK is a small country with a population of about 70 million people, and having about 70,000 doctor posts is a huge opportunity if you think it from that side. And as I mentioned, UK has always relied on international recruitment, obviously and it's one of the biggest employers from outside OECD countries. Roughly 1 in every 3 doctors working in hospital is from overseas, and 1 in 4 working as a general practitioner is from overseas. जी बिल्कुल बस आप just finishing now. So just like any other country in the world, obviously we know medical profession is quite a regulated profession. So that means whichever country you want to work, there will be some eligibility requirements. UK has its own. First of all is PLAB. You have to do PLAB. There are very few specialties where you can get PLAB exemption. Otherwise, you have to do the exam. Then to be able to do job there, you have to demonstrate your English language skills, which is either IELTS examination or OET, or professional English test. These two make you eligible for general medical council registration. Then the next challenge comes of finding a job, and sometimes you need a sponsorship from the hospital, which is another process. And that sponsorship is required then to get a visa. So these are like the basic or the critical eligibility requirements you need to be prepared for. And in addition to that, when you're obviously the main purpose is then you're applying for jobs. So you might have done your PLAB, all those requirements, but then the critical challenge comes when you're applying for jobs. We see a huge issue with very bright people coming in, and I always take pride that the people coming out of King Edward Medical College are really bright people. But then people struggle in terms of getting a job through the interview process. And this is, I've just tried to put a list of things which like clinical audit, quality improvement, service development, change management. These are the bits which are asked in the interview. And then you need to be prepared and being able to ask questions around, sort of be able to prepare those questions. So when I was mentioning earlier, these are things you might think you need to have like a research and a very high impact journal. Yes, that's good if you have one, but even very basic level research would be helpful. Same clinical audits, you deal with a lot of data here. You can do a very good audits here. So these are things you can do even your undergraduate, your house job time, and they can sort of basically build your CV. And we would be very happy to help you with those because they then really increase your chances of performing well in the interview and getting a job. Once you're there and once let's say you've got your job, the other challenges are how you settle down in the UK. Not everyone would like to settle down, but even when you're working there, is being aware of the cultural differences, how you talk to patients, how you deal with your colleagues. So it's just creating that awareness. And again, we would be very happy to help with that, but there is a lot of information to get. You're essentially working in the different religious and faith environments. You have to be mindful of those issues, how you deal with patients. Driving, housing, those rules, taxation system or like savings is whatever information you need about that. And then the challenge comes whether you want to permanently settle there, then you have to be aware of the residency or the nationality issues, or you at some point plan to move back, then obviously there are issues finding a job back home and still maintaining links with the UK. So the challenge is if you are thinking about moving to UK, then how much information you can get. These days, social media, internet makes life much easier, but the main message is going there prepared, and being able to land into your dream job or the job you're looking for. So there are huge opportunities, but it's just being able to go through that process. So we have a team of speakers here, and then obviously there'll be opportunities for question answer sessions during that. I'll finish it here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people who are joining online, they can put the questions in the chat box, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. And we'll pass on to our DBC, Professor Harlow.
Thank you, Professor. And I think all of you know, people sitting here and online too. Professor is the president of KEMCA UK, ex-president. Dr. Shabinda, my class fellow, she's on the way. Has been the acting president of your student union. Vice president, बड़े hectic election के बाद उन्होंने contest किया और ये vice president बने और president की सारा का तो आपको बताइए और राहत और कुमार और ध्यान मौजूद है इस वक्त और अभी मैं 5-10 मिनट की मीटिंग लेके आया हूँ ये सारे एक्टिंग प्रेसिडेंट के बड़े प्रेसिडेंट डॉक्टर राहील एवंस की राहील साहब का नाम सुना आपने कि नहीं राहील साहब हैज बीन द प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी टू द चीफ मिनिस्टर पंजाब और इसमें बात काउंसलिंग की हो रही है ना कुछ अटैक कर रहे हैं आपको यूके में कुछ यूएसए में और मैं बात पाकिस्तान की करता हूँ और राहील साहब हमारे क्लास के वो स्टार्स हैं जिन्होंने सीएसएस करने के बाद बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट पोस्ट पे है आपने ये किया है पंजाब रेवेन्यू अथॉरिटी का नाम सुना होगा आपने उस रेवेन्यू अथॉरिटी के ये फाउंडर्स में से हैं और माशाल्लाह इन्होंने रेवेन्यू अथॉरिटी के बाद इतना जनरेशन ऑफ रेवेन्यू उस वक्त किया कि दैट वाज आल्सो वन ऑफ द अनप्रेसिडेंटेड कंट्रीब्यूशन टुवर्ड्स द रेवेन्यू और फिर एज ए प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी एंड ही बीन ऑन वेरियस पोस्ट तो अभी मैं राहील साहब को देने लगा हूं कि आपको बताएं कि सीएसएस करने का क्या फायदा है सीएसएस का क्या फायदा दूसरा जो कानून भी हमारे स्टूडेंट यूनियन के प्रेसिडेंट थे तो जिन स्टूडेंट यूनियन के ये प्रेसिडेंट थे उन स्टूडेंट यूनियन के ये चीफ पेट्रन थे और इंसिडेंटली हम दोनों अपोजिट साइड के पैटर्न थे बट ही हैज बीन अ वंडरफुल फ्रेंड और इनकी हमेशा किंग एडवर्ड के लिए बहुत कंट्रीब्यूशन रही है और वैलिटी रही है हमारा जो न्यू कैंपस का प्रोजेक्ट है और हमारे जितने प्रोजेक्ट्स यहाँ के हैं गर्ल्स हॉस्टल की कंपटीशन पे इशू आया था स्ट्रेंथनिंग की बिल्डिंग पे आया था बजट पे आया था तो राहील साहब ने बहुत कंट्रीब्यूट किया है कि पे बैक किया है तो किंग एडवर्ड मेडिकल यूनिवर्सिटी टू ओवर टू राहील सिद्दीकी साहब क्या आपको बताएंगे कि एमबीबीएस के बाद सीएसएस करना चाहिए या नहीं करना चाहिए फायदा क्या नुकसान क्या है और राहील साहब के बाद फिर मेरे ख्याल तंजीम साहब लाइन पे आफ्टर राहील साहब तो फिर राहील साहब ने भी जाना है और मैंने जी राहील साहब
Thank you very much, Khalid sir. And I don't know how to begin with, whether it is of some advantages to leave this medical profession and to move on to civil services. Whether it was an advantage or not, I still really don't know. Sometimes I miss out my old colleagues also. Khalid and I were class fellows here in KE. And one of the reasons why I chose to run away from this profession is sitting right next to me. Had he not been there, maybe I would have been in the profession. And my debacle in the medical career started from this very lecture paper. This is where I was pointed out as one of the mischievous students of the class. And our professor of community medicine used to be Madam Dr. Zaida. She was a very strict lady. And she wouldn't tolerate much nonsense in the campus or in the class. So I was an odd person out. Source of it. And this is and somehow or other I got my first supply in my career. I flunked in community medicine, which we thought was not an important subject at all at that point in time. But that changed my mind and I decided to leave this profession and move on to civil services. There are a few advantages, but I'm not too sure whether it is the right forum to address all of you or not, because I believe if you remain in medicine, there is always room at the top let me put it this way, no matter what career you choose, whether in the civil services or otherwise, or within the limits of the medical fields, there's always room at the top. And the difficult thing is how to get to the top. And when you choose a profession, there is a room at the top and there are no shortcuts about it. आप drive कर रहे होते हो सड़क से दाएं बाएं, you can take shortcuts. But if you want to climb a mountain, if you want to go at the top of the Mount Everest or K2, which is the second highest mountain, there are no shortcuts while you're climbing up. And once you reach at the top, then you see down below and you see an entirely different world spreading just before you. So no matter what career you choose, try to reach at the top. And there's no shortcuts. Pure hard work. When I left this profession, I thought civil services was a very easy option. It appears because in medicine, you have to study at least 15 hours or 20 hours. And that is why I thought it's a little too tough. Should I be studying all my life? Or should I appear in one-off examination? Maybe it's a fluke. You come at the top and then the rest of the life you'll be enjoying your life. But there were hardship in civil services also. So I will not advise you to join civil services. Take it easy. Because at the end of my career, though I reached at the top where I wanted to reach, and this was one of my dreams, I should have been in the civil services, and especially in district management of the Pakistan Administrative Service, which is the top of the top. But life was not easy for me. And if you had certain principles in your life and you want to follow those principles and you had strong convictions, then to survive within the bureaucracy becomes all the more difficult. So I had faced very tough conditions. I was kicked out of a number of postings. I made OSTs within days or within weeks, kicked from one district to another district. I was kicked out of this province also by the mighty Chief Minister of Punjab, Mr. Shehbaz Sharif, for showing disobedience, which he thought was disobedience, which I thought was a divergent view of the same thing. But sometimes people don't understand and don't take dissent at all, even if there is some wisdom behind it. So what I was trying to figure out was something, okay, you had not one option, but you had two other options. And the two options that I was putting forth were much better than the first option. So he misbehaved and so did I also. And I had a little tongue in my mouth and I respond in equal terms. And in bureaucracy and when you're dealing with your political masters, it's very difficult to stand up and to say such things. So I was kicked out of this province. For 5 years, I was in the wilderness. I was working in the Amir Bhasha Dai project as general manager, living in the mountains, living with those peoples. But that was another experience that I had. But finally, after 5 years, the same gentleman brought me back and asked me to do something constructive and positive and let bygones be bygones. But I had great regards for Shehbaz Sharif. Not that I am one of his, I have not joined PMLN as such, I have not joined PTI as such, but he was a good administrator. There was a method behind his madness also. And since we were both slightly mad or off-centered, so we both understood each other when I came back again. And he gave me all the respect and he gave me all the powers also that was required, because tax collection was not an easy job. You need to have a political will. And if I had 1 or 2 more minutes, so I'll tell you, what political will is all about and what is now lacking with this current government and why we are now going downhill as compared to the previous governments. The deal that I had with Shehbaz Sharif was that I will manage Punjab Revenue Authority. So he said, you triple its revenues. So I said, I'll not make any promises at all. And I don't make fake promises. The only promise that I'm going to make is that, yes, I'll increase the revenue, but I still really don't know because I'm not at the grip of the situation. But the revenues would be increased, and above all, I'll give the best that I have got. And that was the only promise. But I made him another promise that you also promise, sitting across the table, that there'll be no political interference in my work. I'll not tolerate that. The moment you'll interfere, or your political parties, or your MPs, or your ministers interfere in my job, so we'll say goodbye again. And I had many options, and I'll go back to that. So he kept his promise. And there was one little incident when we came very hard on an entity which is called fashion designers. There are girls sitting here and beauty parlors also. Again, the ladies are more interested in beauty parlor. So these high-end beauty parlors and high-end fashion designers like HSY, and I don't want to name them, there are a lot of names there. They were not paying a single tax at all. And during these winter months, which is the wedding peak season, made to order, tailor-made, the high-end prices was astonishing. 8 billion just for a day, a bridal suit they were charging, 7.5 million. There was a fashion designer who would not take orders less than 2 million, which is 20 lakh rupees. This was phenomenal, just for a single day, for bride or the bridegroom both. And they were not paying any tax at all. So when I started bringing them into tax nets, and then we started closing down their outlets also. So that night became very heavy because I started receiving a lot of calls from various quarters. And we were doing media management also. हम अपने साथ कुछ channels को ले गए. So they were breaking the news कि जी फलाना beauty parlor बंद हो गया, फलाना fashion designer is gone, फलाना ये हो गया. So it was naming and shaming also. Na? So I got a call from within the household, within the house of the chief minister himself. The call started coming, and I was sitting in my office at night, and I was not receiving that call. But I told my operator to check out who really is calling me from within the chief minister's house. First, find out whether it's coming from the chief minister's house, because we know the number 0429999. We knew the series chief minister's past numbers. But who really was calling me? That is very important. So I found out that somebody very, very close to him from inside, one of his household members was now trying to reach me out. So I took about an hour to take that call. घंटे के बाद मैंने बात की तो there was a lady of the house who was now trying to contact me. And he said कि जी वो फलाना ब्यूटी पार्लर आपने DHA में बंद किया है, उसको आप अभी डीसील करें. So I said कि hold on, इतनी जल्दी नहीं होगा क्योंकि the operation is still on. तो breaking news जो है वो नहीं होगी. Breaking news ये होगी कि we have de-sealed something. And if I de-seal it, and if people who started asking me, so I'll tell your name and I'll identify कि जी मैंने इनके कहने पे किया है, and I'll de-seal all the entities that we have sealed so far. So you give me some time and I'll respond to you. उन्होंने कहा जी हमारी तो बड़ी बेइज्जती होगी. मैंने कहा so what? Hold on. And I started giving a call to the principal secretary, to the chief minister and the PSO. Okay, get me to the chief minister. I need his advice now. Because this is very important. And this is now make and break for me. And for the Punjab Revenue Authority also. And for everybody else in the bureaucracy also. So after an hour or so, I got a call from the PSO. Okay, ji, we are still busy in the meeting, but aapki jo SOS messages aa rahe the, so I can send out. So I just narrated him कि यार ये deadlock हुआ हुआ है. So he said, hold on, don't do anything. Because I told him कि go and tell the chief minister. If I de-seal this entity, I'll de-seal everybody else. And I'll let everybody know what happened behind the scenes. So after another half an hour, I got a telephone call from the same PSO. And he said, if you had a notebook, please take these guidelines as 1, 2, 3. और ये in future, ये define करेंगे कि अब आपने क्या करना है. Number one, you don't have to be rude with the household members. No matter what happened, you don't have to be rude. We hope in this case you were not rude to them. I said, no, both the parties were very firm, but we were very polite, but we were very firm. He said, if the member of the household misbehaves with you and he or she crosses certain red lines, तो आप phone फौरन बंद करते हैं और उनसे कहें कि they should contact us. I hope that no red lines were crossed. I said, नहीं, अभी नहीं, लेकिन होने वाली हैं red lines crossed. Next phone call, we will cross the red lines now. So he said, rule number 3, nothing doing. Go as per the law. This is what the Chief Minister wants. And rule number 4, अगर कहीं 19-20 की भी गुंजाइश है, remaining within the ambit of the law, so only the PSO or the Principal Secretary with this name would call you and said, Chief Minister, wo चाह रहा है कि थोड़ा बहुत कर दें. But the Chief Minister is standing behind the promise that was the deal that was done between you and him, and he said nothing doing. Even if somebody is calling from my household, उनको आप हमारी तरफ divert कर रहे हैं. So I got another call कि जी अभी तक नहीं हुआ, 2 घंटे हो गए हैं, CDC नहीं हुआ. I said कि ये नंबर है PSO का और ये Principal Secretary को please call दो. और वो मुझे आपका मैसेज दे देंगे, so we'll get it done. 15 मिनट के बाद फिर एक टोन डाउन कॉल फिर आई मुझे कि जी डॉक्टर साहब वो सुबह आपका ऑफिस कितने बजे खुलता है. I said 9 बजे will be there. It's Saturday, but we are open on at 9. So we'll send you my lawyers there. और वो फॉर्म आपके जो है रजिस्टर भी हो जाएंगे, फॉर्म भी भर देंगे. And how much money should we send you कि वो जो टैक्स की बात हमें देना. Never since then Chief Minister ever tried to intervene. In another case, कुछ हर्षे के बाद again some of these high-end miscreants within the fashion designers was again sealed. I got a call from the Prime Minister house, and you know the person could be within the Prime Minister house क्योंकि weekend था और Sunday को शादी होनी थी और suits अंदर रह गए हुए थे. So काफी हिलजुल हुई, कुछ फेडरल मिनिस्टर्स ने मुझे कॉल किया. So the end point was that I stick to my ground. I said, okay, you call the PSO, call the Principal Secretary to CM, let them know about it. They'll call me and we'll get it done. I received no call at all. फिर एक बहुत बड़े फेडरल मिनिस्टर थे, उन्होंने मुझे कॉल किया और कहा कि वो उसका आउटलेट का ना एक पिछला दरवाजा भी है. वो आपने तो फ्रंट से सील किया तो आगे जा तो. So the next moment I was send my team there कि वो पिछला भी सील करके वहाँ खड़े रहो और आपको. We'll set an example. So the examples were set just because there was a political will behind it, and there was a clear-cut direction in which direction we had to go. The problem in the current situation, I don't want to sound very critical of this current government, but it is totally directionless. It doesn't know where to go, which way to head for, and that is why we are heading towards economic collapse or whatever it is. But coming back to join civil services or not, do join civil services, but think about the pressures that the civil servants have to go through it. So the pressures are tremendous, and we are not being paid for those pressures which is there. I had a stunting done by one of my colleagues, and I had many pressures that I took, and I'm still hand to mouth. He knows about my financial positions. So if you're looking for good money, don't go to civil services. Be in the medical professions. That is probably one of the best professions where you can help people. And you can reach out to poor people also. So
thank you very much.
Thank you, Raheel. आपने फैसला करना है कि सिविल सर्विस में आना है कि नहीं आना, लेकिन ऑनेस्टी और प्रिंसिपल्स ये आपके सामने हैं. और मेरे ख्याल में स्पीकर्स और काफी ज्यादा है. मैं सिर्फ 1-2 मिनट बात करूंगा. डॉक्टर ताबिंदा दोगल इज माय क्लास फेलो एंड शी इज आई थिंक द star of 1986 class, or is all the doctors of UK. She's the president of KEMCA UK. Tabinda, we are very grateful to you for here.
Thank you.
और we are waiting for शायद आपकी फ्लाइट का थोड़ा सा इशू हो गया.
Direct from airport.
डायरेक्ट फ्रॉम एयरपोर्ट आई हैं. और फिर इस वक्त एक और बहुत बड़े लेजेंड तंजीम हैदर साहब ऑनलाइन है. तंजीम हैदर साहब he has been very helpful for the doctors of Pakistan. मैं आपसे बात कर रहा था रॉयल कॉलेज ऑफ फिजिशियन लंदन एयर गिलमोर के साथ मीटिंग की, आपने तमाम ने सुनी होगी. दैट मीटिंग वाज अरेंज्ड बाय प्रोफेसर तंजीम हैदर. ये मेंबर थे उनके रॉयल कॉलेज के, और जितनी ब्रेक थ्रू रॉयल कॉलेज के साथ तंजीम हैदर साहब ने कराई है कॉलेज ऑफ फिजिशियन सर्जन की, एंड ही इज लुकिंग आफ्टर द कैम्कोलियन. आई थिंक दैट इज अनप्रेसिडेंटेड. इनको बेस्ट अवार्ड क्वीन की तरफ से मिला है हेल्थ का यूके, एंड ही इज द प्राइड ऑफ किंग एडवर्ड मेडिकल यूनिवर्सिटी. तो फैल साहब प्रेसिडेंट कैम्का यूके के रहे. एडजस्ट करने में, पैटर्नाइज करने में जो सिंगुलर रोल था वो डॉक्टर तंजीम हैदर साहब का था। अब मेरे ख्याल आप रूटीन में आपका ये सिलसिला जारी रहता है। आई हैव आल्सो इनवाइटेड द एक्स गवर्नर ऑफ पंजाब, और जिसका हम क्लास में चल रहे थे तो उस वक्त हमारे गवर्नर जनरल खालिद मकबूल थे, वो उनको मैंने भी इनवाइट किया तबिंदा को शील्ड दिलवाने के लिए। जब वो आएंगे तो थोड़ी देर के लिए हम दोबारा आएंगे। नाउ ओवर टू तुफैल साहब, और मैं और राहील साहब जरा थोड़ा सा।
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you very much. So we'll continue with our program, and it is a treat to have Dr. Tanzeem Haider with us. So who will be more appropriate to talk about MTI Route to the UK than him? He's I call myself a teacher, and he is the teacher of teachers. And we are very grateful to Dr. Tanzeem Haider to join us to talk briefly about MTI Route to the UK. Over to Dr. Tanzeem Haider.
Thank you, Tafal. Good to see you, Tabinda. It's just actually before the presentation started, Tafal, there was a question, and I've talked quite a bit about MTI, and I think we are already overrunning the time. So I'm quite happy to take any questions, because I don't think the audience has changed much since I talked about MTI before these formal presentations started. So I would suggest that we move on and save time as well, unless there is any specific question. I'm also answering questions on the chat. People are asking specific questions, and I don't think there's any much point in me repeating what I've already said in response to a question.
Thank you very much. I think that's very sensible. So any questions about MTI Route, please ask. You have got the expert in front of you. Please put the question in the chat, or from the audience here, you can ask the question, please. This route is very important route to the training. I will suggest that this is the ideal route if you want to enter the UK training system, because you are joining as a trainee rather than as a trust grade or non-trainee doctor there. So any questions?
They would put in the chat.
They'll put on the chat box, yeah.
Everyone is on.
So
we already had a good discussion about it, actually, Tufal.
Thank you very much for that. So we'll move on to the next presentation, which is GMC registration via PLAB in UK. Obviously, no doctor can work in the UK without getting a registration with General Medical Council. And we have got Dr. Talha Tarrar, who has recently joined NHS, and his knowledge is fresh, absolutely fresher than myself. I moved to UK in 2004. Obviously, he moved recently, so he can update you about things. So up to Talha Tarrar.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity. All right, so I will start.
Okay, Talha, you can start, please.
So please, can you ask him to unmute?
Please unmute. Talha, could you please unmute? While we are sorting this issue, can we ask one question to maybe Dr. Tanzeem Haider? What about post FCPS job opportunities and route of entry, especially internal medicine? If Tanzeem is there,
I'm there. I am there. I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. So post FCPS, if you got full FCPS, then your chances of getting into a job are quite good. You still need GMC registration, as the file was saying, and the GMC registration can either be through MTI, as explained before. You need a sponsorship from the Royal College of Physicians, and then you apply for a job and you can get it. Or the other option is to do PLAB test, which is very straightforward for somebody who's already got FCPS. But the job opportunity for anybody who's got FCPS and would have by definition about 5 to 6 years experience in medicine in Pakistan, for somebody with that level, the job situation is extremely good, and it shouldn't be a big problem. The only thing is to get the GMC registration in those two possible routes.
There is a recent rumor that obviously after doing FCPS, I think you could get PLAB exemption. I think they are going to remove that exemption. Do you think that's true?
There's no exemption from. You have to go do your either MTI. So there's no direct registration on the basis of a postgraduate exam elsewhere, as far as I know.
Hello,
Thank
guys,
you.
can you hear me now?
So yeah, we'll move on to Talha then.
Allah.
Yeah. All right. First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity. So I'll be brief. Okay. So first of all, everybody knows that these are the steps. For me, I have added first one point, that is discussion with the family. Because I think discussion with the family is the most important part in your journey, because the journey is going to take 1 to 2 years, and you need your support with the family, and you need the money and the finances. So the first step is the OET, IELTS, then you give PLAB 1, PLAB 2, then you have to verify from the EPIC, because if we are a non-EU country, so we have to verify our degrees. Then the elective and observership is getting mandatory these days to get a job. Then you get a GMC registration, and then you start looking for the jobs. So the financial part, discussion with the family, the financial part, because it's going to take almost 10 lakh rupees. Secondly, if you are going to UK, so the parents can come to visit you, but still they have to be at home. Your family will be at home. So you might have to stay there for 10 to 15 years, even if you want to come back after your specialization. And secondly, you have to get the seats as early as possible, because a lot of people want to leave Pakistan and a lot of people are pursuing UK. So the seats the GMC gives us is scarce, and the people getting the seats are too much now.
Could you please share the slides again? I don't think we can see your slides.
All right, sure.
Thank you. But if you want to talk with those slides, that's
Yeah,
okay.
that's
fine.
doing a great job actually. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we are running out of time, so just you have got 3 more minutes to finish it off, please.
He goes on mute,
Hmm.
so maybe he can talk through the slides.
Talha, please just talk through this because there is a problem whenever you share the slides, you go on mute.
I think
So
there's
in
a
the-
problem. I'll just talk, and because I think when I share the slides, I get mute.
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay, so OET, and because there are two things. The one is the OET, and second is the IELTS. So for me, I gave IELTS twice, but I couldn't get the marks. So I switched myself to OET. The only difference for me between IELTS and OET is that in IELTS, when you go and give the paper, you don't know if you pass or not. In OET, if you have done well, you will eventually pass. So you can say I am biased because I couldn't pass the IELTS, but I would always prefer OET because it gives you peace of mind. So when it comes to PLAB 1 seats, it's very, very, very difficult because I have seen my juniors struggling for that. You go to the GMC website, you see a seat, but once you refresh, there is no seats left because a lot of people want to go to UK. So for me, the best time to give the OET or IELTS will be before the final year exam or just before your house job. The seniors we had used to tell us that you have to give it before the house job, but now because of the job, because of a lot of people want to go to UK, the seats are very less. So I would advise people to start preparing for it in the final year, because sometimes we struggle, we don't pass it on the first time and everything. The PLAB 1 fees is around £240, and the the things which you can study from would be PLABable. You can get the subscription. Then there is PLAB keys that you can get the subscription, and then there are NICE guidelines. So UK follow NICE guidelines for everything. So if whenever you are struggling, you can go to just NICE guidelines and you can study from there. Now the next thing is the PLAB 2. So the PLAB 2, you will have to go to UK and give the exam. So it's almost £870, and once you go to the UK, you will see that the biggest question for the PLAB 2 journey is the question that what academy should we have, because there are a lot of academies and a lot of people struggle for that. For me, every academy is the same because they all teach you the same thing. The only thing is that you have to practice a lot. Practice, and practice. The more you do it, the better you get it. So for me, any notes from any academy, or for me, the NHS website was my main source of study, because I think this is the one of the best websites put, and it's doing the marvelous job, because they tell you what you need to know. They don't tell you less, they don't tell you more. They just tell you the best things you need to know, and you can tell this to the patient. You should go to the UK around 45 days, not more than that. But I always tell people that before going to UK, you should just have all the preparation, and then when you go to the UK, you just have 40 to 45 minutes for the discussion. Because my seniors used to do was that they used to go to UK 2 months before, and then they'll get an academy, and they will take lectures for 2-3 weeks, and then sometimes they will pass, sometimes they don't pass, because the pressure is too much. You have spent so much money, and you're just fearing that you might fail, and then you eventually fail. So I would advise people to start an online academy, whatever they want, it does not matter, and then prepare. And after that, they can go and just practice. And the things you will meet people from different ethnicities. I met people from Egypt, I met people from Saudi Arabia, I met people from distant parts of the world, and I made friends. So it was very good time for me. So now there are 16 stations. There used to be 18, now there are 16. 2 are the rest stations, and the remaining stations would be medicine, counseling, telephone, video consultation is a new station they have added, and then examination and Chimman stations. So the passing criteria is either you pass 10 stations, or not either. You have to pass 10 stations, plus you have to get minimum marks scored, which all depends on the day when the people are giving the exam.
Thank you, Talha. Can I please interrupt you here? I mean, obviously, all this information is available on the website. Just practically speaking, there is an issue about the sorting out the accommodation. What you will advise to people who are going for PLAB 2, and how should they look for accommodation there in Manchester?
So I was explaining to you, it was the problem we have is that we make plans at the end of the day. It's just like if I am going to UK, and the bigger problem is that we don't know either we'll get the visa or not. So we wait for the visa to come, and once the visa comes, and we have to rush to UK a week before, or just a week after, or 5 days after. So my advice would be to start to have a property in mind. You don't have to buy, you go for it and rent the property. You should have a property in mind, have talked to the owner beforehand that I am waiting for my visa. Please have this seat booked for me. And normally they respond, the response is very good, and they normally have, they know people are coming, and they know the doctors are very good, so they let you the property.
That is because you want the seamless route to UK, because you already have lots of tension about the exam. You don't want to have tension about what I will eat, where I will live, etc. So these things are important, and we can help you with that. So if you don't mind, we will move on. Obviously, we are answering the questions as we go along. There is another important question here. So what are the opportunities for those trainees who have done MD, MS, etc.? Yes, the opportunities are the same. You have to go through the same route as other doctors do. So obviously, if you have done MD, obviously that is a plus point for you. So I will give the mic to Tabitha to introduce our next speakers.
Thank you, Tafel. Our next speaker is Mahwish, and she is a GP trainee General practice is a route which is obviously not present in Pakistan per se as a training route, and I think it would be quite interesting to know how Mahwish reached this point and what are the pointers to, especially for females. I think it's a very good specialty to choose. It gives you flexibility and it gives you job sharing opportunities which will arise in Pakistan as well. So I think it would be quite good to listen to what Mahwish has to say about this. Mahwish Faisal.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mahwish. I am a GP trainee currently in Harlow VTS scheme, which is the East of England Deanery. So I will just touch a few things getting into GP practice or GP training. There are 3 rounds that run every year. One is in November when the applications open, which is a national recruiting system. The second one is probably around March, April time. And the third one is in September, August, September time. There are 3 times when you can apply for general practice. There is an entrance exam, which is called as MSRA, multi-speciality recruitment exam. There are 2 stages. Actually, there are 3 stages. Stage 1 is the application. Stage 2 is the MCQ exam, which has got 2 parts, which is the clinical, and then there is the situational judgment exam. And there used to be a third one, which is the stage 3, which is more like a little OSCE exam, which is now not being done because of the COVID for the last 2 years. Now, to be eligible to apply for general practice, you must have done MBBS. The next thing you must have done is your house job, and then you need to get a competency signed, which is equivalent to either F2, which is the foundation year 2 in UK, or if you have done a 3 months or more than 3 months work in UK or anywhere, in addition to your house job, and then you can get the competency signed off, which is a prerequisite to apply for GP training. Now, why to choose GP training? It's also called family medicine, community medicine in other parts of the world. I've just jotted down some pros and cons just to accommodate with the time, because we have relatively very short time to go through all this. If I want to be a GP, what are the things I'm looking forward to? There is a good family work-life balance, if you ask me, because mainly it is the 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 job. Currently, there are no weekends, there are no nights, and then if you have commitments, like you have got your family, you have to look after, you have little kids or things like that. If you're male, you're female, it doesn't really matter, because in UK everybody is the same. You have to do everything. Both of you have to do everything. So it's a good family work-life balance. You need to have your clinical judgment. So you're using your assessment, your knowledge more, rather than thinking about, I'm waiting for the blood test to make decision about this patient. The other thing you can think about when you are in a GP training, so because so many people, they want to do surgery. There's something which is called as GP with the special interest. If you want to, let's say, do minor surgeries, you can have your experience in that, and then when you are qualified GP, you can do your GP with special interest in surgery. Similarly, if you do DRCOG, let's say if you have interest in gynae, but because of your commitments, you can't go to the gynae, or you're struggling to get a training there, it's not equivalent to that, but then you can do DRCOG, and then you can do your GP with special interest in obs and gynae while you're in GP surgery. Similarly, for derma and all these specialities, diabetes and endocrinology, you can always opt in as a GP with special interest. Low competition is because GP practice and GP consultants, they're in a high demand throughout the UK. So there is low competition, but even then, if you consider you wanted to work near London, the competition rate is high, but it is easier to get into as a training specialty rather than getting into somewhere else. If you have some special, you have your specific interest going to some of your chosen areas. It's in high demand. It's a short duration training. It's just a 3 years training as compared to the other specialties like medicine, like surgery. You have to spend like 8 years into a training, or maybe let's say gynecology. It's a 3 year short training. And then after this, you are a GP consultant. Golden handshake. This is something interesting. So in UK, there are some rural areas, or there are some areas where people don't want to go and train. It's not because they are very backward areas. It's just because they are a little bit on the periphery kind of thing. They do have all the facilities which they provide in the big cities, but they are a little bit on the periphery. So what happens is there's a scheme called TERS. So you will get 20,000 payment, one-off payment. It is liable to tax. So even then you get a payment of about 18,000 pounds. All you have to do is to pick to that area when you have got the specialty. You have to work there for 3 years, and then that's all. You don't have to work there anymore. But this money you can use for, let's say, to buy a car, to do a down payment or something like that. So this is something which the specialty offers. You can choose your own hours. So this is also for someone who wants to be flexible with the work they're doing. It's good money. Once you are, if you're a GP partner, it's really good money. If you work as a locum GP or a salaried GP, it's better money, and it's shorter route. It's family oriented. In a GP practice, if you're working there for quite a long time, you know your patients know you. So it's more like you are aware of what's happening with your patient. You don't have to deal with something different every day, and there is a trust built in between yourself and the patient. And then that's how I really like it in that way. I'll just touch bases to the cons quickly. Like everything, if you say something has some benefits, and there's some less benefits as well, is the same with the specialty. Now when I'm saying there's some drawbacks as well, I'm working in a GP practice. I will have less access to resources, which means I will not have access to blood test, x-rays, CT scans on the same day. That doesn't mean that I can't request it. I can request it, but if I think my patient is serious, I have to send this patient over to A&E. I would not have access to the same day blood results, same day x-ray, same day CT scan. So there's a little bit less access to resources. For that reason, you need your good clinical judgment, and your knowledge should be on top of the mark, because then all you're doing is you're doing patient safety, you're treating the patient, you're managing the patient with the knowledge you have. It is a lot isolating specialty, because most of the GPs, they are having their lunch break in their offices. They're doing their admin work there. You hardly get a chance to to see others, because you have got your own room. You are sitting there doing your practice and everything. There is wide range of appointments. A usual slot a GP get to see a patient is 10 minutes, which is a very little time to assess a patient and then see them. Because normally, if I'm in a hospital practice, I will spend my time to see a patient safely and then go through everything. But in the GP practice room, you
Can
have
you
10
please wind
minutes.
up in 1 minute? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Less training exposure is 3 years. Most of the time, you're running out of time, like I'm now. Home visits, some people like it, some people don't, because in a sense you're going to someone else's home, and then you are going to see them, a patient in their environment rather than your own. The same with the care home and nursing home visits. It's coming to more like a business oriented specialty. With GP practice and everything, they are more worried about the CCG and the funding and everything. And also you need more of your leadership and management role in that one. It's a run-through training. You have to go through your exams, which is AKT and CSA, with your training and your portfolio on top of that. So it's basically it's a challenging thing to do when you're in training. Any questions?
Thank you very much. That's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Thank you. So any questions from Mahwish, please? Obviously, we do want to make it quite informal as well. I mean, please do ask us any questions you have got, whether you are joining remotely or here, and we will try to answer all the questions. So at the moment, we have got a question. If Dr. Tanzeem Haider is there, could you please answer this question? That a trainee from MD or MS program from KEMU can apply for MTI program?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Yes, they can. If they've done at least intermediate module, they can apply.
I hope that answers the question. Do they have to do MRCP part 1 still? Or that's not the requirement?
It's not essential. If you've done either written part 1 MRCP or IMM, then you will be considered eligible for your MTI. But securing a job, if you have a UK qualification, then of course you stand a better chance of being offered a job.
Thank you very much. I think that answers the question excellently. So we have got the next speakers who is joining us from here is Dr. Rahat Ali. He's a consultant endocrinologist at St. Albans City Hospital near London. So I think you have been a consultant for a few years now. Yeah. So we still consider him a young consultant. So he will talk about specialist training, becoming a medical consultant. So off to you, Rahat. You have got 6 minutes, please.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. As is introduced, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to come here and as everybody said, to talk about different things. And today, as a part of KEMCA UK Symposium, I'm going to talk about medical training. I've only made a very few slides, so I'd like to make it as much interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, please interrupt me and ask any questions, please. Right. So we will talk about the basic training, which is now called as internal medicine training, followed by specialty training programs and alternative training pathways. I think we've talked about it already. And then what it feels like to be a medical consultant, and a little bit about salary, which has been asked by a lot of people. It used to be called as core medical training to start with. It is now being changed to internal medicine training as a part of the UK's effort to make the training more broad-based, which means that the basic training, which used to be 2 years, has now been extended to 3 years. So it used to be core medical training part year 1 and year 2. It's now called as IMY1, IMY2, and IMY3. The recruitment happens at IMT1, and you need similar foundation competencies, whether you do it in the form of completion of foundation training program or by filling out the CREST form by having all the competencies. And then there is 2 years of IM1 and IMY2, which is the SHO years, which is equivalent to medical officer in Pakistan, followed by an IMY3, which is technically a junior registrar post. There are no interviews at the level of IMY3 entry unless you are applying to a training program that starts in ST3. There are some programs that start in ST4, and there are some other programs that start in ST4, and we will talk about that in a minute. The recruitment happens twice a year mostly, but there are sometimes re-adverts. Recruitment has already started. The application process for round 1 has already been completed. And there will be obviously interviews. There's a lot of stuff to talk about it, but I'll keep it to short about the actual training. So then you have your specialty training program, which starts at either ST3 or ST4, depending upon which specialty you are joining. So there are 2 types of specialties called as Group 1 and Group 2. I think some of you would like to know which specialty starts at ST3 and ST4. I think these few slides clarify that. So acute internal medicine, cardiology, clinical pharmacology, endocrinology, where I belong to, gastroenterology, genitourinary medicine, geriatric medicine, infectious diseases, neurology, palliative medicine, renal medicine, respiratory medicine, rheumatology, and tropical medicine. If you want to apply to these training programs, the training will start at an ST4 after you've completed IMY3. So you've completed 2 years of general SHO training and then another year of junior registrar at an IMY3. So you have 3 years of medical training experience. Then you join these programs and your medical training continues, as in your general medicine training continues along with your specialty training. So when you end up, you have two specialty, you can become a consultant in two specialties. One is general medicine and your other specialty. That is, for example, I am consultant of endocrinology as well as medicine, internal medicine. And these are group 2 specialties, which actually start at ST3 level. So you can apply at the level of IMY2. When you complete it, you can start at ST3 levels, ST3 level. And these specialties do not have general medicine intake. So to some of them, these are very attractive specialties, but they are highly competitive. And you have to get your CV and everything all in line before you can apply to these. You can note down these specialties if you like. So the infectious diseases, if combined with medical microbiology or virology, and tropical medicine, when combined with medical microbiology or virology, is exempt from internal medicine training. So in summary, group 1 specialties have 3 years of medicine training, followed by 4 years of specialty training plus general medicine training. And group 2 specialties have 2 years of general medicine training, followed by 5 years of dedicated specialty training. During training, what you do an exam. Before you join the ST3 or ST4 program either, you have to complete all the 3 parts of MRCP. During training from ST4 onwards or ST3 onwards to ST7, you have to do an exit exam in most specialties, which is generally MCQ based. And then you have to do workplace-based assessments, and they are recorded in what we call as e-portfolio. And then there are annual assessments on how you're progressing. And if you're progressing satisfactorily, then they grant you what we call as completion of certificate of completion of training, CCT. And there's been a lot of talk about medical registrar being a very busy job, but there are tips on how you can survive as a medical registrar. At the end of the day, it's only a few years. It's not that you have to do it for all of your life. So what after you've done your CCT, then you become a medical consultant. There's an interview process and selection happens according to the interview. Everybody who's completed their training will have a CCT at the end, but people who stand out are the ones who have extra things with them. For example, publications, teaching experience, qualifications, quality improvement, service change, which Shafiq I have talked about it. Job of the medical consultant is interesting, and when I became a consultant, I was looking forward to the job. It's very rewarding. You are more responsible of your teams and your wards and your clinics, but it also gives you the opportunity to make a change because you are in a role that you can make a change. There are a couple of things to talk about. ACCS Acute Medicine is a program. There's a very small number of posts, though. It can be done instead of your IM1 and IM2 program. So, but I think a lot of people stick to the IM program because there are a lot of, and there are further things. I think last thing I would say is that you should try and join a non-training post before you start in a training post, because the training posts come with quite a few things that can become overwhelming. This is the rough salary, if you want to know. Indicative, but there are lots of things here as well. But generally, this is the salary that you get. Lastly, remember that UK, EU nationals and anybody who has the right to work is not preferred anymore in the UK. This changed in October 2019, and that's been a big boost for all the trainings. Previously, we used to be downgraded on the interviews and everything on the rankings, but this does not happen anymore. And the IMGs are no less preferred than UK graduates. And remember, there's no age limit. So I'll stop my presentation here, and I'd love to have any questions.
For example,
I think very good question. So the question. First of all, when you've completed your MRCP, you qualify for GMC registration and PLAB exemption. You have to do OET or IELTS. My preference would be that you join at an ST4 level program. If you're joining the Group 1 specialty, if you're joining Group 2 specialty, you join at an ST3 rather than IMY3. Because you generally come with more experience after you've done MRCP, but you can join at IM1 program as well. पहले जो non-training job है ना, वो I would prefer if you work as an SHO, unless you're very familiar with the system. For example, if you work in Ireland or something. My general advice for people like the one you asked a question about is to join as an SHO for at least a few months to learn about the hospital environment, about the culture, etc. Because as a medical registrar, you are the most senior clinician on site at night. So you have to know that there is nobody else in the night. You can contact the consultant, you can wake him up, but you are the on-site person. So if you are happy to take up that role, then you can join that. But as I said, most of the people do join at an SHO level, and that's what I would prefer. Once you are familiar with the system, you know how things work, then you can easily become a registrar. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Rahul. That's a wonderful presentation. One more question, please.
Sir, I have a question.
Please.
Sir, due to COVID situation, we have been stuck here for 2 or 3 years. I've been a job as a medical officer in the Department of Nephrology, but in the future, I don't want to pursue nephrology.
Yeah.
So the medical, these 2-3 years of working as a medical officer in Pakistan, will it be count in my CV, or is it a useless like job, or what do you suggest about it? Should I transfer it to somewhat other specialty?
So thank you for your question. COVID की वजह से, you're absolutely right. There has been problems of recruitment in the UK as well as visas, etc. But that also gives you an opportunity that once the COVID situation is better, there will be lots of jobs. So I'm still very hopeful that there will be lots of jobs. The job that you're doing in nephrology will definitely help you, as long as you keep up with your knowledge and your skill and try to do things that Shafiq Bhai has previously mentioned. So quality improvement, service change, audits, publications, presentations, whatever you can do. As long as you keep up your CV, then you will be fine. Remember, a lot of things in the UK are not based on how many years you worked. Somebody may have worked 20 years in somewhere and may have not got the competency of working as a registrar. But somebody may have just worked 2-3 years, but may well have the competencies to work as a medical registrar. So just remember that. So as long as your knowledge and skill is up to date, you should be fine.
I'd like to add to that as well. I did nephrology, although I'm an endocrinologist now, I did nephrology for 2 years before doing that. So I got with myself a unique skill set because they were both so interlinked, like the renal failure in diabetes is the most common cause of. And you can put in lines and you can do the biopsies and you're able to identify things on the urine sediment that nobody else can do. So there are so many things that will come in handy. Medicine is what you want to do at some stage. So any part of medicine will be very, very good. It will have its own skill set. So don't worry about that.
Just to say, we'll be around afterwards if you have any specific questions to ask, and I will try to leave my email as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Also, we pass on to our next speaker, who is Dr. Raheel Qureshi, who is a consultant gastroenterologist. Who is a hospital Gateshead near Newcastle, where I used to work as a registrar once upon a time. So he will be talking about CeSR route to specialist registration. So a CeSR route is an alternative route to become a consultant, basically, if you are just going from here and working as a trust grade registrar and get your competencies equivalent to the trainees there. So Dr. Qureshi will explain you more about this. I think he has completed the CeSR route himself as well. So he is the right person to tell us about all these things. Thank you, Dr. Raheel Qureshi.
Thank you very much for giving me a chance to talk at this symposium. So what happens if the people don't get into the training and they want to work as a consultant in in UK. So this is called an alternative route where you apply for an entry into the specialist register with the certificate of eligibility for specialist registration, which is called CeSR. So if you want to work as a consultant in UK, you must have your name into the specialist register. And for that purpose, either you go to the training with the CCT or you apply through the alternative route, as I just mentioned. This is awarded by by the GMC, and you have to apply directly to them. GMC forward your application to the Royal Colleges, which assess your qualification, experience, and skills, and then they give recommendations to the GMC, which finally give the verdict about your applications. You must have a specialist qualification in the specialty you're applying for, or you should have at least 6 months of continuous specialist training in the specialty you want to work in. You need to apply to the GMC. So the application is evaluated by the College of Faculty, and then get a decision, and then the process of review or appeals. This is totally an online application. The rough estimate about the documentation is you should have around 150 of them and should be around 1,000 pages. It's not it's a fixed amount, but this gives you an estimate that what sort of on how much evidence you need to collect. It should not be overloaded or not be under it. So you have to provide a CV, which should be according to the format of the GMC, which is quite elaborative, and you should need to work on your CV for that one. Then you should have a list of your referees, which I'm going to discuss later on. Give your professional experiences and provide the list of evidence that you have it, and just note the fee, which is pretty hefty. As I mentioned, the application goes to the Royal Colleges, they assess your everything, and the application comes through. Yeah, okay. If your application is successful, GMC will send you a CeSR certificate, or otherwise can offer you some recommendations which you need to work on. Ultimately, you get to it. If you're not successful, then you will get some recommendations. You work on it, and then either ask for a review or a re-application. If you don't agree with the GMC decision, you can go for a appeal process as well. So the most important thing that I would talk about is the referees. You should have at least 5 or suggested 6. You should have one as your topmost referee, which should be your clinical director or the medical director, which could be equivalent to the MS of the hospital in Pakistan, probably. One of your current supervising colleague or a senior consultant should also be one of your referees. They should have knowledge of your at least 5 years of your training preceding the applications, and you should have at least 2 doctors who are from your same specialty. If you're taking any training, then your training program director or education supervisor or regional advisor could be your referee as well. If you are taking a referee which has retired, they should be within 3 years of their retirement, because the GMC would not accept anybody who is beyond 3 years of retirement. So each application is considered on its own individual merit. The GMC will consider the totality of a doctor's career. They can demonstrate breadth and depth of the knowledge and skills in the specialty they're applying for. And the level that they assess is according to the CCT training program that they take. Application in CCT training specialty must demonstrate that you meet the requirement of the CCT curriculum in place at the time of your application. This is the GMC website where you can go for the details of it. You have to provide evidence and in 4 domains, and I'll talk about the domains, but you have to qualify and pass each of the domains separately. The main bulk of your of evidence is in domain 1, which is about 75%. The domain 2 comes to the second one, which is around 20%. The rest is around very minute amount. So you have to provide your qualifications, your assessments, appraisals, your logbooks. And I would suggest that if you want to go through that route, you start making your logbooks and record everything into that one. You should have details of the post and duties that you have done it. Add your research, publication, presentations, your CME activities, and teaching and training. In domain 2, which is safety and quality, you need to put audit and safety and quality improvement activities over there. In the rest of the domains, your communication, partnership, and teamwork, and honesty and integrity is to be included as well. As I mentioned, your 6 referees, the Royal College triangulate your primary evidence and verify work, training, experience, personal attributes, skills, and competencies with the structured report from your referees, which is very important that you have your referees. And I would suggest that you have some of the referees who are currently working in UK or have a full exposure to the UK system qualification. So you have to authenticate your degrees and qualifications. This can be done by the solicitor or the notary public. If you are providing a copy of your curriculum, it has also to be authenticated by them. It includes your primary medical qualification, your specialist medical qualifications, any registration that you have done outside the UK. You need to provide your honors and prizes and other relevant qualification certificates that you have. It may or may not be related to your medical profession. It's very important to have your appraisals and assessments ready. So if there is a system of appraisal in Pakistan, you must follow that one and collect your last 5 years appraisals and assessments. You can get hold of the e-portfolio, and you need to upload all your data into that one. Get your 360 feedbacks and multi-source feedback from your colleagues and your patients. Provide every detail that you can get of awards and discretionary points. If you are taking part in appraisals and assessments of others, you should also include that as well in your application. Have some personal development plans. This is very important, that you need to show them that what you want to do and what you need to aspire for the next year. It's very important to get into that one. As I mentioned, record your every activity in the logbooks that you have it. You can include your case histories, referral letters discussing patients handling, patients list. So there's a lot of things that you can, every activity that you do in the hospital, whether it's clinical or non-clinical, you can include into that. You should try to work on your research, publication, and presentations. If you have any presentations, you try to include that into your evidence bundle. You can add them by adding the posters, feedback from the colleagues when you attend these meetings, and the handout of the circles. You should add your CPD and CMA. We recommend that you go through the RCP diaries if you are enrolled with the RCPs. If you're a member of any professional organizations, you should show how you got that membership, whether it is evaluation exams or open to all. It's very important that you have teaching and training part included into your e-portfolio. The evidence that you can show could be your teaching timetables, could be handouts from your lectures. As I mentioned, the feedback for evaluation forms from those taught. Some people get thank you letters. That will be very important into that one. And as I mentioned, just participation in the appraisal and assessment forms. Clinical governance activities are very important, and we should look into that while you are working in Pakistan, or if you aspire to go there. So you can add your audits, have some reflective diary. This is very helpful, which I've been learning throughout my career. Take part in service improvement projects, and you can include that. If you look around what you do in your practice over here in Pakistan, you will find a lot of things that you have already done it, which you just need to think about and put into your portfolios. Any incidents that you have reported or you've been part of that will also come into this activity. And then obviously you need to show that you're healthy and have and you're safe to work. Communication is one part. I've been taking PACES exams, and I can see that the most of the candidates failed on the communication part. So it is given very utmost importance in UK. So there is a various ways by which you can demonstrate about your communication skills with the colleagues. You can get testimonials from them. You get letters of correspondence between you and your colleagues, like referral letters. Management, including organizing staff rotas, presentations, meetings, and copies of appraisals or references that you have done for other people. While working with the patients, again, communication is very important. You should add some thank you letters and cards that you get from your patients, or any compliments that you get. And if you have been a part of any complaint process, the response that you show is also very important to describe, and you can get a feedback from the patient in 360 degrees as well. If you work in a multidisciplinary team, it is very important to include their data. And you must have been taking part in many of such activities in Pakistan. So it's just to organize them, keep a record of each and every meeting that you took, you take place, keep their minutes available to you, and you can take part in leadership activities, which can be depicted by your rota management, your service evaluation projects, or chairing meetings and leading projects. Again, for honesty, integrity, you have to anonymize the patient's data, declaration on your application form. You have to show equality and human rights. So I will just cut short because I was planning to talk something about it. Don't forget to authenticate your documents, validate your forms online by one of your referees or your consultant colleague. Anonymize all the data, otherwise your application will fail. You need to substantiate what you put as an evidence, and the evidence of non-clinical skills that somebody was saying before. You have to demonstrate your leadership, management, communication, teamwork, teaching and training, audit, safety, and honesty, integrity. Please make sure that evidence is well organized. Look at the website of the college faculty for your specialty. Make sure the specific guidelines, guidance on the key topics is available. Provide evidence across the breadth and of your specialty. Demonstrate the two-way communication with patients and colleagues. Read the specialist curriculum, which is very, very important to do that. And try to gain a good understanding of the assessment process used in the UK, and act on any suggestions that the GMC makes to your initial checklist. Don't submit your application until the majority of the evidence has been obtained. Don't provide duplicate evidence, and assume that reports, references, and testimonials on your level of ability would be sufficient for your application to be successful. You have to prove, you have to give your own evidence rather than rely on the testimonials. And don't submit unnecessary evidence, as I've just mentioned. Don't rely on your evidence which is more than 5 years old. Check the website for regular details. Don't submit any expired courses. And the common problems that we face is submitting evidence that is not appropriately validated, not anonymizing the applications, not responding or ignoring the advice given by the GMC certificate advisors. Mostly people fail because they have incomplete applications, they have not enough referees, or the structure report given by the referees is incomplete. So my take-home message would be, have enough time for document collection. I would say about a year. Read and follow the relevant curriculum, most important thing. Have a mentor or senior colleague as advisor. Select appropriate referees and get their approval beforehand. And they should be very strong. They should recommend you in each and every recommendation that they need to make, and anonymize patients' data. And never give up, never give up. And this is my email address. I'm happy to help anybody in my personal and professional capacity in getting through, as I've done the CeSR myself many years ago. Thank you very much, and I'm open to any questions that you have.
Thank you, Raheel. I think they can put in the chat box, and if audience have any questions at all, it seems like it's the burden of proof really, isn't it, on the person who's applying for CeSR. So you've got to collect a lot of evidence, but it's doable. So thank you very much for all that encouraging presentation. So I'm going to move on in the interest of time to the next presenter, who is Dr. Imran Bhatti. He's going to talk about the anesthesia training, so becoming an anesthetic consultant in the UK. So Dr. Imran Bhatti, he works in Walsall Manor Hospital as a consultant anesthetist.
Okay, we can start the slideshow now. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Imran, as been introduced. I'm a graduate of 96 and I've been a consultant for a few years in Walsall. The main idea of doing this presentation is to think outside the juicy specialties of medicine and surgery, and to tell you that there's a whole world out there other than the mainstream as we consider in Pakistan. So what I would do is, in next few slides, I'll introduce the training of each one of the specialties. So as we understand in Pakistan, there's one anesthesia specialty. However, it's 3 in 1. The first and the foremost is anesthesia. The second is critical care. And the third is pain. So when you work, can I have the slide number 1, please? Okay, so when we consider about this specialty, we have to consider that, as I said, there are 3 different parts to it. And when you work as an anesthetic consultant, typically speaking, you maximally spend 60% of time in the operation theater. And there are multiple combination of skills which is being used. So the key question here arises why I should go in this specialty. There are a lot of things, for example, for my own self, I do like to work on my own, and I also like to work in a team. And so there are a lot of personality traits which could be suited for this specialty where you don't get exposed to until as we get some idea about it. One of the key things I would recommend is that if you really want to get some idea about these 3 sections of this specialty, is to go and do a kind of a shadowing job for a week or so in your own hospital to really consider and see how the work happens in day to day. However, I will give you some UK perspective. It's always the biggest department in every hospital. There's a huge job market, not only in UK, but all over the world at all levels. So at all levels, I mean at the SHO or CMT level, at the specialist training level, and at the consultant level. In my 15, or I would say 16 years in UK, I've never worked in a hospital where all the anesthetics posts have been filled. And it's a huge crisis at the moment, especially at the middle grade level, where the posts need to be filled all around. Next slide. So in order to become a consultant in anesthetics, you have to do your foundation year like any other specialty. And then you have to do the 2 years as equivalent to medical officer. During this time, you have to complete you have to do your FRCA Part 1 in order to compete for the specialist training. The recent change has been that for the ST3, that's the first year of your specialist training, you might have to complete as a part of your medical officer. However, you may understand the key thing is to do your FRCA Part 1 before you embark onto the specialist training, and then you do your FRCA Part 2 during the rest of the training, especially when you move from ST4 to ST5. Then you get the opportunities to do fellowship, especially in your last year. In the last year, you can do fellowships in various subspecialties like obstetrics, critical care. Then you can do ultrasound fellowships, regional fellowships. I've also done a teaching fellowship. So then you select that which way you're going to go as an anesthetic consultant. Now, in terms of critical care, in UK, unlike US, Australia, or Canada, the anesthetics or the anesthetists actually provide the facility or the service in most of the hospital. There is a separate Royal College now in making for ICM. However, they barely comprise maybe 10 or 20% of the consultant workforce. So the service is still provided by the anesthetic consultants in most of the hospital and will stay the same for at least next 10 years to come. So either you go through the main route, through the critical care route, or if you become an anesthetic consultant, you do an extra year in intensive care. If you do want to do a dual CCT, by which I mean you want to work both as an anesthetic and a critical care consultant, you have to do a minimum of 2 years altogether with obviously extra exams. Next slide, please. The third, and I would say the most ignored or least known specialty within anesthetics is acute and chronic pain. Each hospital in UK has to run a chronic pain service, which is run by anesthetists. It's a highly sought after specialty. Pretty much every hospital needs a chronic pain consultant at the moment. There's wonderful private practice and there's a lot of work involved. So here you can provide a combination, say like if you're really, really interested into medicine still, I'm talking about clinic work, then you can combine your theater work with your clinic work, which I'll come to soon afterwards. I'll let you know that how it actually works. Now, in addition to your specialist training, which you're doing in anesthetics, you have to do a year in chronic pain, which is not difficult to do. And it is encouraged for you to do a fellowship exam in chronic pain, which will be a big plus for you when you apply for your consultant job. However, it is not mandatory. Next slide. So it's really important to understand that if you go for a specialty, how a day looks like. For example, somebody is really interested into cardiac surgery and want to become a cardiac surgeon. He really need to spend a whole day. I'm pretty much talking about late evening, even if the person is called on night. So to see how that person goes through the whole thing, that this is going to be a life for later on. So day as an anesthetic consultant starts at 8, finish at 6. During this time, it could be a direct supervision, it could be distant supervision, or it could be hands-on. Putting all together for a standard clinical job, it could be 2.5 to 3 days work. I'm talking about a 10 hours day here. In addition, you'll get 6 hours of CPD as any other UK consultant. And then you have to cover on calls. And sometimes you have to cover the weekend trauma list. But that's the very basic job you have to do as an anesthetic consultant. As I said earlier, barely you have to spend 60% time inside the operation theater overall. Now, as a critical care consultant, the job can be really hectic for a week, which is called hot week, by which I mean that if you are 8 consultants, you will do 1:8. Every 8th week or every 7th week will be called hot week, where you have to do a lot of hours in a single week. However, it will be all compensated in rest of the week. So you'll find that you'll be a lot of offs in rest of the week, which will be really family friendly if you say that. It will be mixed job plans. So 1 or 2 days you'll be working as an anesthetic consultant. The other day you'll be working as critical care consultants. And as a critical care consultant in the UK, you need a lot of managerial skills. You have to do a lot of communication with the patients, relatives, from the clinical staff. So I would say is among the 3 specialties, this subspecialty, this one requires the most of your managerial skills. Now, what happens as a pain consultant? As a pain consultant, usually you have to do 2 clinics per week. You have to do a whole procedure list in a week. And then there will be an anesthetic commitment similar to your anesthetic colleagues. For example, you may have to work a day or 2. There's a lot of private practice, as I said to you earlier, and it provides an excellent mix for a person who still wants to do clinical work, though working in anesthetics. So how about the salary? They are paid, the salary is absolutely the same as any other consultant. As I said, due to huge shortage all around the year, there's a huge opportunity for locum private work, whatever if you want to. And one thing I must emphasize that it's a common thing to happen that anesthetic consultants or critical care consultants or pain consultants, after a few years of working in UK, do go for Middle East for a few years. And that's an extremely lucrative and fulfilling option if you consider. Just to keep something in mind, if you don't want to stay for long in UK and want to stay close to Pakistan, I've got my colleagues working in Middle East who go to Pakistan up to 4 times, 5 times a year, which is a great blessing if you've got parents back home. Thank you. Open to questions.
Thank you, Imran. Thank you, Imran. Great presentation. I think concise and keeping to time. I think anesthesia in Pakistan is perhaps not as a favorite specialty, not practiced as a favorite specialty, although there is a huge need to have anesthetic consultants in pain management, intensive care, and critical care, as well as in anesthetics. So I think it sounds like a very lucrative specialty, and I hope that it has inspired the young ones to take this on as a specialty. Yeah, so if there are any questions, but they will put in the chat box. So I'm going to introduce the next speaker who is here, Raheel, and he is a consultant urologist in the University Hospital in Lanarkshire in Glasgow.
Thank you very much. The organizers and Professor Sahib, Dr. Dougal, for giving me this opportunity. It's a great pleasure. I used to sit on these benches around 20 years ago. So myself and Amir Nawaz, who's going to talk about liver transplant, we've got a challenging task of talking about surgery, and we are the last 2 speakers. So we have that challenge along with the time constraints. But I'll try and keep it very brief. The reason why I'm here is I want to inspire young Kencolians to, believe in their potential, believe in their abilities. And if they want to achieve something, there is nothing that can stop you, even in UK. So I'll just give you a brief outline. I don't have any disclosures, a brief outline. I'll give you my background, just a couple of slides in all these 3 areas, where I started, how I got through my training in UK, and I became a consultant urological surgeon. Briefly about why urology. There may be some trainees here who are aspiring to become surgeons, and why they should consider going to urology wards, seeing what life as a urologist is, and considering it seriously as a specialty. And lastly, I'll talk about quite a lot of overlapping sort of themes with other speakers about what the pathway is, what duration is, and what the opportunities are. So I come from a place about 400 kilometers from here called Bahawalpur. I was quite privileged to go to a school called Sadiq Public School, and that gave me a good foundation to come to this place. It's both these institutes, they've shaped my career, Sadiq as well as KE. I graduated from KE in 2003. I had the privilege of doing my house job with some of eminent surgeons and professors of medicine. And I must name Professor Majid Chaudhry Sahab, who was our professor in surgery, and he supported us greatly during our time for doing IELTS and PLAB during our house job, including giving us some time to study from busy surgical placement. So I went to UK in 2005. I wanted to pursue a career in cardiac surgery. Now I'll hold my hand up. I had actually never been to cardiac surgery ward or a cardiac surgery placement as an undergrad or as a postgrad. I think that's one thing that I would like to say to my young budding Kencolians, that you should, if you want to explore something, go and work in that department. Go and see what life is like. General medicine and general surgery are very, very common to pursue in Pakistan, but there are lots of other specialties. So when I went to UK, I was helped by a very, very eminent urologist, Professor Sumro. He's an ex-Kencolian as well. He helped me greatly. He actually filled out my clinical attachment forms sitting. I was here, he was in UK, so I was just sort of communicating on emails. So he gave me an attachment, and that was my first exposure. I loved the specialty and never looked back. So I did a foundation program, and in spite of being caught up in, there was a thing called modernizing medical carriers, which sort of stumbled a lot of carriers. People left UK. I think roughly speaking, when I came in 2005, almost half of our colleagues left back, you know, and they went to Australia and stuff. But I persevered, trained in urology in Newcastle, Manchester, and Glasgow, and I've now been a consultant for about 7 years. So the crunch point I want to say on this slide is, within 10 years of arriving in UK, I was a consultant and I was a clinical lead. So you can lead anything, you can achieve anything. First job I got was, there was 2 jobs in the whole country. I had lots of competition, local graduates, and I was one of the 2 who secured that job. And I'm not talking highly about my, you know, any of my sort of, you know, it's all about, if you believe in it, you will achieve it. Urology, I think it's a perfect blend of medicine and surgery. So there's lots of medical managements, you know, for prostate, bladder, renal colics, andrology, and we do a little bit of oncology as well. And obviously surgical management is there. In terms of training in UK, I think it's a perfect surgical specialty, I would say, for a lot of reasons. I think you want a specialty that gives you enough surgical exposure and, you know, that adrenaline rush of managing emergencies and stuff, but you also don't want to be up all night, you know, dealing with emergencies. So I think urology gives you a good work-life balance. It's a very, very popular specialty among female trainees. About 20% of UK trainees are female. So certainly a surgical specialty to consider for female colleagues. We have lots of subspecialist areas. We do endourology, female and uro-oncology, urogynecology, functional and reconstruction. And again, you know, uro-oncology is a big area. For pediatric urology in UK or transplant, you actually have to do additional training. So there are separate training schemes, but you can train as a urologist and then go on to the areas. One of the biggest areas, which apart from laparoscopy, minimally invasive surgery, which is coming up, is robotics. One of the areas which has specialties which has taken up robotics very, very widely, and it's very successful. So I do robotics in UK. We do laparoscopy. We've been doing that for a long, long time. So certainly something that you can consider if you're interested in minimally invasive surgery and technology. Training program, I'll not bore you. I think roughly speaking, you do 2 years of foundation training, which is similar to house job or a first year MO-ship. Now, this is the time to maximize your exposure in UK to various specialties. You know, you can take a test a week, you can go to a block where you want to expose yourself to a certain specialty in UK, and then you decide which core surgical scheme you want to apply, and it's usually 2 years. Within those 2 years, you have to achieve competencies, you have to brush up your CV, you have to have publications, all the additional things. Knowledge-wise, our trainees are never behind anyone in the world. It's all these other things that basically, you know, are the stumbling blocks. And obviously, you have to do MRCS during this time. For urology specialist training program, it's a competitive national entry. And there are usually 3 to 5 applicants for one job, but you can achieve it. We've done it. There's a lot of Pakistani urologists who are consultants in UK. Now, in the application, there's an online application thing where you add all your data, all your information, demonstrate your competencies, upload your portfolio, CV, publications, presentations, and you're scored on that. And based on if they do a long listing or a short listing, you'll get an invitation for an interview. And in an interview, you'll have all the assessments of medical knowledge, your non-technical skills, ethics, probity, and others. The training itself is about 5 years, depending upon if you want to do a fellowship year after that. Very much like, you know, the structured training, which is now coming to Pakistan as well, including work-based assessments, e-log books. We don't have, as such, have to do a thesis unless you're doing a research degree as an MD or a PhD before you start your training, or if you're in an academic program. And obviously there is formal regular teaching, usually weekly or monthly, depending on your program. You have to do lots of audits and research and publications. You have to have your yearly annual review of competency progression. And by the end of it, you have to do your FRCS urology, which leads to an award of a CCT or certificate of completion of training. Now that allows you to apply for a consultant job. So it's a long process, but if you work hard, you can achieve lots of skills. You can medical management, surgical management. So it's a great specialty. People can do post-CCT fellowships locally, nationally, internationally, and then you become a consultant. I'll not go on to these areas. I think as a consultant life, you're not at that stage, so you can be mentored as you go along. I think the crunch line is you can achieve it. Just believe in yourself, work hard. The time in Pakistan, utilize it well, use it for all the other skills. Your non-technical skills, your communication skills, your audits, research, your publications. So work on those while you're waiting for coming over to Pakistan. And I would advise you to go to a ward, experience what urology is. As my other colleagues have said, it's best to start at a junior level, even if you've done maybe quite a number of years here in Pakistan. There is no harm in starting maybe a level below. You can get the experience, you can get the how the systems work, and you don't want to stress yourself. You don't want to be in that senior management and decision-making role, which may then lead to any problems. You get stress. So there is no harm in spending an extra year or so, achieving that. You essentially can achieve lots. As I said, you can do major surgery. I do radical cystectomy for cancer patients, including new bladders, reconstructions, lots of oncology work. We do lots of robotics. So it's a beautiful specialty. If you want to do surgery, go and expose yourself. And if you want to come to UK, believe in yourself, work hard, and you'll be able to achieve it.
Thank you very much, Rehan. That's wonderful. So, okay. So before we go to the last speaker, we will move on to Professor Bournemoth.
Thank you, Dr. Talha. I think for the last speaker, there is a short ceremony. I welcome Honorable the ex-Governor of Punjab, General Khalid Maqbool Sahab. When I was assistant professor and associate professor, उस वक्त सर chancellor of King Edward Medical University और फिर तमाम universities का chancellor. And he has got a passion with the health and the education और जिस अंदाज में इनकी patronization with King Edward थी. He used to be the chief guest of our convocation and different alumni. आज तशरीफ लाए हुए थे तो मैंने कहा सर को पुरानी यादें हम ताज़ा करवा दें कि उस जमाने में भी हमारे केमका यूके तो अब तंजीम बनी है लेकिन अपना और केमकाना these were the main organization. But now the KEMCA UK is equally active and dynamic, led by Dr. Tabinda Dogal. She's my class fellow and previously the past president, Dr. Bournemoth, he is there. Tanzeem Haider is already online and so many people there online. And this is a seminar on the career counseling and this is a hybrid model, people sitting there and they are online. And I've requested, sir, just to honor the presidents of these KEMCA UK and the speakers. And before I request for the distribution of field, I will request the Honorable Governor of Punjab, ex-Governor of Punjab, for a word of wisdom, sir, please.
Dr. Gondal, your worthy colleagues and dear students, of course, I was here on a personal assignment. I want to get consultation of Dr. Rana for one need that was bothering me. But I shared with them a personal experience way back in '99 when General Musharraf took over the government. I was then a corps commander here in Lahore. And we were involved in monitoring duty and we were told to go and see how the hospitals were working. And I remember very frequently I would change my uniform and wear into a blue blazer and drive into a new hospital. and straightway go to emergency part. And there I would hope that I would see wailing patients, crying babies, and fighting doctors. And every time I went there, I would converse with patients, ask their attendants. And by and large, everybody say, oh, no, we came here within half an hour, we were seen by the doctor. I've got the medication. Yes, every medication has not been given free. But by and large, I would see there was no wailing, there was no crying. And I go back and report to my headquarters that it seems like everything is working. I don't know why are you getting this report. So the Mayo Hospital and King Edward Medical College and now King Edward Medical University, I think has a very fine tradition of service towards humanity with quality. And of course, all of you need to feel so privileged that you're here because you're one of the best. And not only here, gesture on the part of, at that time they were all called Chemcolian, and now I see a new word of KEMCA and other terms. But from that point, I remember then Principal Dr. Dr. Mumtaz would always bring me here on the annual get together of Chemcolian, which was both an academic but also a social get together. And I would have the privilege of inviting them to the governor also. And even at that time, there was this exchange of knowledge and help from outside. So I need to thank you all for helping your alma mater and for transferring knowledge, because मैं बूढ़ा हो गया, मैं मेडिकल की बजाय इसकी बजाय दूसरी चीजें पढ़ता हूँ. तो रात को मैं पढ़ रहा था नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि हदीस कि क़यामत का करीब होने की सबसे बड़ी निशानी होगी माशरे में जहालत पैदा है. क्या मतलब है, क्या हिकमत की बात 1400 साल पर कर दी. So I'm very happy we are into a knowledge phase and we want to excel in knowledge. And you can't excel unless you are part of the global community of knowledge. No, there is no now local knowledge. This is all local, important. So I need to be should be very thankful to all of you. And it's not easy. People, if you were to go and speak to a doctor, a British doctor, an American doctor, they would charge you by the minute. There's nothing called free. This is a mistaken concept, and I'm sure my friends who come from UK and US, there's nothing free. You want somebody to talk to you, come and give a lecture, you have to pay. And so this is tremendous gesture on their part to come here, share their time, share their experience, and also give you a way out. You want to tomorrow go and search the word to advance, which is okay. I don't think we need to press on you that you need to work here. I think you are part of this global community, but maybe as you advance, go outside, make money, in between you to think of also serving Pakistan, because that is where you need to recognize that this is where you took birth and that somebody sacrificed for you. You were good, there's no doubt. But remember your parents sacrificed and they not only funded you, they also prayed for you. So to return their prayer, when you've gone there, become a money-making doctor outside, think of spending time and think of what they are doing. So Dr. Gondal, I'm very pleased. I saw the telemedicine initiative of King Edward Medical University. He was telling me this time, the admission is almost 97.6%. This is remarkable. And I had a consultation with Dr. Rana Saab, and very professional, no unnecessarily. आप कहीं और दुनिया में चले जाएं, appointment में आपका operation भी कर देंगे, गोटा भी लगा देंगे, because it's all driven by money and medicine. He was so conservative. He said, "But share करें, बाकी चलागे ना मारें." So I think we have a wonderful setup of medical education. We need to put more heart in it. We need to be more sincere. I wish you all a great career. I wish you great success. Inshallah, one day all of you will be doctors of international recognition, serving the humanity. And I'm grateful, Dr. Mohammed, for the kind courtesy that you extended to me. Sir, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is my honor and privilege to welcome our chief guest, Khalid Mahmood, who is our first Chancellor of King Edward Medical University. And I also like our guest of honors, Dr. Tabina Gill, Dr. Tufail, along with our Vice Chancellor. Please come forward and distribute the shields. So the first shield goes to Dr. Tufail, the former chairperson, KEMCA UK. I would also like to introduce Professor Abid, Professor Raheel, Professor, all those professors who are sitting here to please join the ceremony of souvenir distribution. Dr. Tufail is a pulmonologist and also the former chairperson of KEMCA UK, and he traveled a long way from the United Kingdom for the history book for Dr. Tufail. Next is for Dr. Shafiq Gill. We are very grateful to you, Dr. Shafiq Gill, for presentation. Also, there is a history book for Dr. Shafiq Gill. Dr. Rehan Khan. Dr. Khan has presented a beautiful presentation about the urology and how the career can be made in urology in UK. Dr. Rahat Ali, consultant endocrinologist in United Kingdom. Next is for the chairperson, KEMCA UK, Dr. Tabinda Gill, our guest of honor today. Thank you very much, Dr. Tabinda Gill. She has traveled a long way and reached Lahore just in the morning. And also there is a history book for Dr. Tabinda Gill. I also want to join this presentation. Now the last is for our chief guest, Khalid Mahmood, the first Chancellor of King Edward Medical University and the
इस माशरे के साथ आपका ताल्लुक है और मुझसे रहता तो है तो बात क्या शेर शादी की लेकिन हकीकत बड़ी है क्या कुछ वो है क्या है रूट तक पहुंच गई क्या
उसने पेशानी पे जब मेरे हाथ रखा रूह तक बात उतर गई
So ये यार इसका डॉक्टर का रोल बड़ा है 10 लाख
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. It's Dr. Abdullah Gujjar speaking. Can we complete the last talk, please? I think our speaker is waiting.
We're moving on to the last speaker. So
Okay, we are doing it. Thank you.
Training to be a liver transplant surgeon in King's College Hospital, London, which is really the center of excellence in the whole country, not only in London, in the whole country. So I'm really, really pleased that he's found the time. He could have been doing some surgery. There was a possibility that he could be doing a transplant at this time. So I'm really, really delighted that he could join us. Over to you, Amir.
Thank you, Dr. Tabinda. I hope my slides are visible and I'm clearly audible.
You are.
Yeah, thank you very much. So it's a great honor to speak in KE. I'm a graduate of 2008, and I think I left Mayo Hospital in 2012, and it's the first time I'm coming back to these lecture theaters. I wish I could be there in person, but because of COVID and work commitments, I could not come. So I'm working as a specialty registrar at King's College Hospital in liver transplant currently. So the topic I have been given is regarding surgical specialty and the scope to work in UK in these surgical specialties. So first of all, no, I think I am addressing to mostly undergraduate or early postgraduate um, 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 audience. I have few tips for surgical trainees which I have followed throughout my whatever my surgical career is. First of all, you have to find a mentor. In my own words, I called it as murshid. You have to find a murshid. Without your ustad, you cannot progress in surgery. That's the key. So when I was in KE in final year, I started my surgical rotation in South Surgical Ward. Professor Khalid Masood Munzal was the professor, Dr. Asghar Nakki, Dr. Nadeem Aslam, and then I moved and did house job in West Surgical Ward. Haroon Rafiul Islam, Dr. Yasin Rafi, and then I did start my postgraduate training with Khaja Azim Sahab, and my supervisor was Dr. Nadeem Aslam, and I have also worked with Professor Amir Afzal Sahab. So they have all been my mentor in emergency. I've always worked with SRs, Dr. Hasif Asif and Dr. Nasir Naseem. They were my ideals, and I strongly believe that they are the people who have built foundations for me. So the second thing you have in surgery is like an army. You have to follow chain of command. Surgery is an art. No one will give you the job in future if you are not able to operate. For a surgeon, you have to be the one who will operate in theater and can deal with the stress. You have to be physically, mentally strong. You have to, for me, we do long surgery, 6 to 8 hours, regular exercise. You have to be mentally very equipped. The last thing, because now I do mainly open surgery, but I always tell surgical trainees to seek to learn innovations like laparoscopy and robotics, which will be coming soon, mostly in our HPB department as well. I know urology is already quite efficient with that, but I will. It's an advice for the trainees to learn laparoscopy and to look into robotics as well. So there are how to come to UK. Sorry, I think I have skipped a slide. Sure. So surgical training in UK. So what is the pathway? So there are many things you have to consider when you come to UK after the house job or post graduation, which is FCPS or MS. You have to get into the system and you must have a GMC registration for license to practice. There are many ways to get it. You either do PLAB, many speakers have spoken about it, MRCS, now USMLE Part 1, Part 2, and OET and MTI program. Sorry, hello. So there are some questions you have to ask yourself. How long do you want to stay in UK? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And what route you want to adopt as a surgical training in UK? Either you go through a national training number as Dr. Mr. Rehan Sohail has done, or you do a CeSR pathway. But the target is to get a specialist registration. You can either get through CeSR or you can get through CCT. So specialist registration is required to become a substantive consultant in UK. You can become a locum consultant without specialist registration, but to stay long term in UK and have more credibility, you have to have a specialist registration. How to get a specialist registration, as many speakers have spoken about, either you go through national training number. For surgical trainees, there are 2 entry points, which if I say, so if you have done general surgery, which is already in your experience is less than 18 months, you go through core surgical training. And if it's more than 18-month entry into, if it's more than 18 months, you can enter into ST3, as Dr. Rahat was telling about the medical specialty. To get into ST3, you must have had MRCS. It's a run-through training from ST3 to ST8. You will get a certificate of completion of training, which is called CCT. You have to do an exit exam, which is FRCS. Then there is another pathway, which I called it as an alternate pathway, which is CeSR Certificate of Eligibility for Specialist Registration. For surgeon, you must have FRCS, and you have to do FRCS, which is done in UK and Ireland, not international FRCS. You should have a recommendation from 5 substantive consultants. One of them should be a medical director as MS of the hospital, or a clinical director, which is a head of the department. You need at least 3 publications, you need 3 audit cycles which are completed, and there are certain courses and then the certain teaching and further. So for this is my last slide. For liver transplant, you can come to UK. Either you have done post CCT, the people who have already done training in UK, they can join it as a fellowship. There is no certain module for liver transplant. And then once you do a training in UK, you will not be awarded as a specialist in liver transplant. You have to do a fellowship after. Or you do it as a part of non-training program. And like if you have done FCPS in Pakistan, you join here as an MTI, stay there more. Or if you are already in UK, you have done MRCS and you are already here as a middle grade, you can progress in liver transplant, but you will be staying in one department, you won't be rotating among other hospitals. There are total 7 liver transplant centers in UK. Kings and Birmingham have the high volumes, and we Kings deal ourselves as one of the centers of excellence. Liver transplant training is a long training. It's at least 3 to 4 years minimum. It's not only surgical aspect to learn, but also perioperative hepatology and ITU management. It's a stressful job. It's very demanding physically, very less social work, but it's rewarding. I can see change in patients' life and their quality of life after we have treated them. And then when they come on beds into theaters, and when they go home, they are walking. It's a big reward. So it's a challenging thing, but it comes with a lot of reward. Liver transplant is one of the most complex surgeries in abdomen, if I say so. You have to be very good in vascular anastomosis skill. Your dissection should be very neat, because we deal with people with very high portal hypertension. They bleed a lot. You need very good support from anesthetist, ITU colleague. To get into liver transplant surgery here in UK, you must have done something already in UK, at least some general surgery, some training. You cannot get into liver transplant training directly from Pakistan. I'm happy to guide people and help them in this regard. I can suggest, if you are interested in liver transplant, some of my junior colleagues have already done FCPS. They are doing some fellowship in PKLI Shifa Hospital. It will make things easier for you to come here. MRCS is must to start as a registrar. It's a super specialty. It takes a lot of effort and time, and I'm happy to help and guide. if anyone wants any recommendations, I'm happy to help. So this is my last slide. If any questions, I'm very thankful to everyone for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our apologies for running late for this workshop. I hope you achieved something out of it. We have got time for one more question if anyone is interested to ask. Otherwise, we will conclude this session. And we remain very thankful to you to come and attend this session. Our special thanks to Professor Sarah for facilitating this workshop. We are really grateful. Yeah. Okay, I think we are all tired now.
Dr. Tanzeem has put the first question that she wants to be a surgeon, but everybody has discouraged her that being a female, surgery is not a good career for you. But I think after this session, what are your views now? After having liver transplant surgery,
you can do everything. Liver transplant,
urology.
सर यहाँ पे लाइक आपने कहा 20% फीमेल वहाँ पे यूरोलॉजिस्ट हैं जिले वहाँ पे देखो लेकिन अगर यहाँ पे देखते हैं न्यू हॉस्पिटल में अगर देखते हैं यहाँ पे एक यूरोलॉजिस्ट नहीं है
दोबारा पूछे आवाज ऊंची है
यूरोलॉजी की बात हो रही थी कि 20% वहाँ पे जो हैं फीमेल्स हैं यूरोलॉजिस्ट ना लेकिन अगर यहाँ पे देखा जाए तो न्यू हॉस्पिटल में लाइक एक सिंगल फीमेल यूरोलॉजिस्ट भी नहीं है मैंने अपनी जो अलाइड सर्जरी की वो यूरोलॉजी में की थी उस समय ना तो वहाँ पे एक सिंगल इवन कंसल्टेंट तो दूर इवन इसमें भी रेट लीजिए तक भी नहीं थी जो ना तो फीमेल्स मुझे जो ना परसों करती यूरोलॉजी को ऐसा कहेंगे तो आप बताएं
What do you think about it? आपने तो हाउस जॉब की है तो आप बताएं
मैम
Why shouldn't you?
यहाँ पे ना जो देखो यहाँ पे गायनी है तो फीमेल्स कर रही हैं यूरोलॉजी में मेल्स कर रहे हैं यही एक जो ना कहते हैं मतलब ट्रेंड बनाओ करके अगर गायनी की तरफ फीमेल्स आ रही है यूरोलॉजी की तरफ सिर्फ मेल्स आ रहे हैं
There is another specialty that is called gyno-urology. Urogynecology. And you can be a pioneer in that in Pakistan. Yeah. If you want any help, I know someone.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think if you remember, as I mentioned in my presentation, UK is rapidly changing in terms of providing what we call flexible working environment. And actually now, by law, if you join a job, they have to ask you from day one that would you like to work flexibly or work from home. So that means the traditional conventional thing, this specialty is for males, this is for females, this is family friendly, this is not family friendly, that is gone now. So basically you can think whatever you like, and then the work environment is there to support you to progress through that. So I think that's one of the advantages of exploring training in the UK is it's a very supportive environment and you can really pursue your dreams. So it doesn't have to be restricted to any particular specialty.
And just coming back to your questions about female not being given the opportunity, yes, this is a global problem, obviously, being kept within UK and USA more. There should be equal opportunities for everyone. No one should be stopped to achieve their dreams. And our example is in front of you. Abid is our first ever female president of the for excellence. Really, I mean, it's all up to you, and we are here to support you.
I mean, long time back, there was this female breast surgeon, Dr. Khalda Usmani, who was the first female breast surgeon, who was the first breast surgeon ever, really, and she was female. I don't think anybody knows about her. So I think the female heroes don't even get sung about, you know. So there are people who will be doing things like there were people who were doing orthopedics, there were females who were doing orthopedics, there were females who were doing breast surgery, and there's still quite a lot of females who are doing breast surgery. So I think there are people, but they just don't get talked about.
And can I just have an interesting thing? When I started histopathology training, I think about 30 years back at KE, I was on my first day, I was asked, "Ye to ladkiyon ki specialty hai, to aap I think you just have to change those paradigms and just do whatever you like. So when I look back, I enjoy that specialty, and I would do it again. So I think it's just what you want to do.
I just wanted to. I think as I said in my presentation, I'm here to inspire you guys, and we all are. You know, we come here. I think you need to believe in yourself. I appreciate. I think थोड़े से हैं हमारे के gynecology में अगर male जाएगा तो उसकी practice नहीं चलेगी या female अगर you all. I think you have to look at it from a different perspective. If you become a competent, well-trained urologist, you may be the only one who all the females want to go to, you know, because वो भी हमारा एक element, एक social, females would prefer to be seen by females. So I think we have to look at, in terms of in UK, if you come to UK, so you know, we don't, there is no, मेरे अपने department we are 9 consultants and 3 of them are females, and all of them work part-time. They look after their kids, they want to work whatever sessions they want to work. And so there's a lot of flexibility. And in terms of out of hours, as I urology, especially overseas, you don't want to be like on call, Rahat ko call. Obviously, as a consultant, you have to go if there's a really dire emergency. But in general surgery, you'll probably be out every night. In orthopedics, you'll be out every night. But in urology, there's a good chance you may not be called out. You know, or may any to promote being lazy. You know, it's a family friendly. You know, we need to dispel those things. But I think it's a great specialty. So you should explore it. There are a lot of female urologists in Pakistan. You know, so I hope Lahore may be home. Like certainly in Lahore and you know in other big institutes. You know, it's a specialty to explore. So never give up.
Thank you. Got a question from Imran Bhatti, please.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. I just want to address the ladies here who are interested to come to UK. You know, when we talk about this part-time training or flexible training, this is obviously not a concept much understood in Pakistan, but it's a reality in UK, to be honest. So just to give you my own example, there was a time in my career when I struggled. So I just went to my mentor and asked it if I can do part-time training as a male. And I was highly encouraged. And for that 1 year, I only used to work 3 to 4 days a week. And when that difficult period passed, it was so easy to come back to training. So these are realities in UK. As a female, if you want to pursue part-time training all the way through, you can do it. And it's an extremely good work-life balance. Because we are not exposed to it in Pakistan, it's a very difficult concept to understand. But in UK, there are a lot of facilities. And now we have come to a stage here that you don't have to even provide a reason that why you need to do the part-time training.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I would like to thank Professor Saira, Professor Gondal, and people who are not even present here and who presented before I came, and all the participants who sat through patiently, and people who are listening online, and all our presenters, of course, who took time out, who were visiting and they took time out to present here, and also the ones who are in the UK. It was a really, it was bank holiday and it was really, really early over there. So I really do appreciate their getting up at 7 a.m. and then talking to everybody here. So I hope that we were able to provide some guidance, some enlightenment, some encouragement, and some positivity. This time when, you know, I know a lot of young ones are fed up because of COVID and the whole situation. But, you know, as they say, this shall pass too. You know, in a young life, a year, 2 years is nothing really. In a man's life of 80, 90 years is nothing. So it will pass. Just use it to do things that you always wanted to do, and just think about and plan. Planning is the essence. Like anything that goes well, it has to be planned well. So with that, I'm just going to close this session and thank you all. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Dabinda, for coming all the way directly from airport.